We're going to have an interesting conversation today. There's this politics side, 7 to 8, of course, where we're looking at all these things. Movement. Is NASA dead or alive? Are we going to have a cabinet reshuffle or not? Reshuffle or not?
Yes to all of the above.
Yeah. Is Kibicho going to lose his job or not? Are we going to win this seat at the UN Security Council or not? All these things.
As I said, yes to
all of the above.
Yes.
Everything here just yes. Tick the yes box.
We don't even need to worry too much.
Tick the yes box.
Yeah.
Also, we will be talking about food security. A couple of weeks back, we were looking at what the CS for Agriculture, Munya, was proposing. Some far-reaching changes to how the National Cereals and Produce Board would operate. Would they be buying maize from farmers? And then we saw politicians, especially those from the North Rift, saying that this would be undermining the farmers in the region and across the country. So we want to understand what exactly is happening there. And then you have seen, we discussed yesterday the issue of children. We were talking to Justice Teresia, and she was telling us how there have been some attempts at reforms, little by little progress. Now let's talk to the government side, people who are in charge of policy and seeing how these things run. So we'll have all those conversations. But first, let us begin. In the last 24 hours, they will call
184, highest number so far, out of just over 2,000 people having been tested in Kenya, taking our numbers to 4,044 in the country. And then it was interesting because yesterday we spoke about, are people still shocked that the numbers are rising? And then we said, okay, you know what, maybe when it gets to about 200. And this was the reaction that we saw. And people, we thought that maybe lethargy had set in, people were kind of getting used to it or whatever. And then yesterday the numbers were at 184. And then we saw a little bit of a buzz and people were like, hold on a minute. The numbers are increasing. The tests are remaining kind of the same.
How long does that buzz last?
Wait now. I'm telling you, it'll get to 200. People will be shocked. Then it'll get to about... And people say, just 200? We're still all right.
it's just numbers now.
It's numbers. It's numbers.
How many? 184. Oh, okay. So now we are at 4. Okay.
That's it.
Okay. And the deaths are now at 107.
Yes, there were 2 deaths yesterday. And the 27 were discharged and allowed to go home. So let's see. But the numbers continue to change.
Okay.
The United States still with the highest number of cases in the world, 2,234,471, with almost 120,000 deaths so far. And looking at there and what has been going on there, if you want to look specifically at these numbers now, which seem for some reason to have been ignored or taken over by events, as it were, they're recording about 26,000 new cases still every day. And deaths, we are looking at almost 2,500 deaths per day over the last 3 days. So it continues to be an issue. It continues to be an issue in the United States as we see it.
You know, remember the time when this number started just ticking into the US and China was still recording some deaths. And now the conversation had started being twisted into, let's look back at China. China has been lying to the world. China's numbers, absolutely no way China could have had less than 100,000 positive cases and less than 5,000 deaths, right? And this whole narrative, I mean, now looking at this, some of these numbers in some of these other countries, you're like, okay, so really, is it that the Chinese measures really worked that well? That we still maintained less than 100,000 positive cases confirmed. And remember, China is testing. And anybody found positive is taken straight into an isolation facility. And so was China underreporting?
Consider how many countries, even after China had shown the way by taking some genuinely rigorous and vigorous steps to ensure that they were dealing with this invasion of the COVID. Other countries didn't take that cue. They had this laissez-faire attitude towards it until it started overwhelming. They said, whoa.
What's going on here?
Yes, but China didn't joke with COVID from day one.
From even now, look at what they have done with Beijing. Just because there's a resurgence of cases,
And those cases aren't even many.
They are not many. They are less than the number of cases we got yesterday in Kenya.
And what have they done?
There you go.
Beijing shut down.
Down.
Yes.
In a matter of days.
Down.
Yeah.
Forget everything. Forget.
All that
Down.
we'd said, out the window. And just looking at what's happening in, just a neighboring country to China, more or less, New Zealand now has gone back to COVID status because of 2 British gentlemen who traveled into New Zealand. And now...
When did they go to New
Yeah,
Zealand?
this is the problem. And now, unfortunately, Jacinda Ardern is saying this is a failure. They just celebrated this less than a week ago.
Had they not said that we're not going to open up the borders?
This is what they said. And she's calling it an unacceptable failure.
What happened? How
And
did
she
they
has
get in?
condemned failure to test the pair before they left quarantine after their arrival from the United Kingdom.
Wait.
So it's not like they crossed the
They
blue
came
post.
to New Zealand.
So they crossed blue post clearly,
Yes.
and were allowed to cross over blue post.
And then they entered into quarantine.
But they were supposed to go into quarantine.
They were in quarantine. But
Okay.
now, before they left quarantine, they were not tested.
Were they tested when they went into quarantine?
Yes.
And
And
they
they
were
were?
positive.
They were positive, but by the time that they were announcing this, they were negative. By the time they
They
were
got
making the announcement of being COVID free, they were still negative. So
These guys were negative.
They were
in
negative.
quarantine.
Now, leaving quarantine, because this is what the protocol states, and I think all the way from the World Health Organization. Before somebody now is cleared to leave quarantine, they
Test
must have
twice.
tested twice, negative twice,
negative.
over 24 hours. This test did not take place before they were released. And remember, they were not in isolation, they were in quarantine. And this is why she's calling it an epic failure of these 2 women.
So when did they end up testing positive? At what point was
After they left quarantine and started presenting with symptoms, unfortunately.
So did they get this thing in quarantine?
That's the question.
Because we are talking about CT. We are talking
Or
about...
did they have it before and it
people
did
have
not
come,
present when the tests
They have
were
stayed
done?
in quarantine for how many days? Is it 14 days or 41 days?
Yes.
So you've come, you have stayed in quarantine for 14 days. At the point of entering quarantine on day 0, you're negative. You have stayed in quarantine for 14 days, right? At what point did you become positive? And when
But also, there's a point to note here is that they were released from quarantine before the time accepted by protocol was given. So they were released on something they were calling compassionate grounds.
Okay.
What was this compassionate ground?
That all right? They seem to be doing okay.
Oh, they are the good
They
behavior.
look-
yeah, kind of thing.
All right.
They're not partying.
They look okay.
They're
and
not
they were
insulting the
behaving
officers.
themselves. They'd come into the country on other business, of course. And so they were allowed to go. Now, this is where the Prime Minister took serious issue with. Compassionate grounds, number 1. Number 2, you didn't test them. Even if you were going to allow them go on compassionate grounds, you should have tested them before you let them out.
Actually,
And now
quarantine
she's
is
saying-
you test once. It's isolation that you need to test twice.
Yeah, see, but now in this case, they were not tested at all.
At all.
Okay. Now, this is what she's saying. It would have been all right if you had tested them and we found out that
That they're still
they're
negative.
still negative. That would have been fine. But you didn't test them at all. We release them and then they present with symptoms. They go to hospital. They're tested for COVID. They're found to be positive. But guess what? They've already been out. And we've just announced to the world
doing
less than a
contact
week
tracing.
ago that we're COVID free. Not good.
Ask yourself.
She's
New
not a
Zealand
happy.
is just
she's
like Kenya.
not a
It's
happy camper.
It's a happy thing to know.
Okay.
No
So-
different from us.
The question that is running through my mind is, when you say you are testing, is it an antibody testing? What exactly are you testing? Let me tell you why I'm asking this. Huh? They could be in the same as HIV, what you call viral load. If the virus is below a certain concentration, the antibody activity will be infinitely reduced. So there'll be no alarm bells. But it doesn't mean you don't have the virus. Now you give it time, the virus develops and grows, and then it manifests. That's one. 2, remember this thing about people not exhibiting.
Yeah.
Okay? Not exhibiting the symptoms and testing positive is tricky.
Yeah.
You may be tested, you don't exhibit. That we've understood. You may be tested and you're negative, but have we conclusively understood that it therefore means you do not have the virus? That is what I'm saying. So if they were tested, they were negative at that point in time.
Yep.
Do we have an idea of how long this virus takes to incubate? Yes.
I think looking at the protocols and all what's happening around the world, there's that assumption that within 14 days, incubation has taken place. Even Professor Anzala was telling us it's within that time. There's the first, is it 7 days, and then there's up to the 14th day, and then sometimes it extends to the 21st day. It's still not absolutely known,
yes,
but it's...
They are not speaking conclusively and definitively about it. So we are at the stage where whatever is known is still iffy.
We're in a fluid situation.
Yes.
The known knowns and the
unknowns. It's still iffy. But when it is iffy, then you want to take the sort of steps that China is taking.
Rock down.
You want to err on the side of caution.
Rock down everything. Let's take a break. We will be looking at the weather, and then we will take a look at the newspaper headlines. I'm going to give you a chance to download the standard newspaper on your mobile phone. From your Safaricom mobile, just dial *550*2#. That is *550*2#. Do you have 20 bob airtime? Well, 20 bob airtime will just be deducted, and you will be able to read the standard newspaper. You don't need to download any app. You don't need to worry about having data bundles. You don't need to worry about signing up for anything. Just that 20 bob airtime you have, then you dial *550*2#. You get to access the standard newspaper. Shortly, I'll give you a question in which you can win 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime. 17 minutes after 6. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
.24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi this morning at 13 degrees. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 12 today. Taking a look then into Nyeri at 13 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions. 22 the high and lows of 13. Nakuru at 14 degrees is partly cloudy. Its chance of rain is quite high today with highs of 22. And in Eldoret at 13 degrees, thunderstorms expected later with highs of 21. Kisumu will see a high of 28 today with showers in the afternoon, mostly cloudy at the moment at 19 degrees, and Kakamega will follow suit, currently at 16 degrees with highs of 24 later on. In Mombasa, mostly cloudy at 24 degrees, chances of showers very early on, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Malindi is already experiencing light showers at 26, likely to go on through the rest of the day with highs of 28. All right, outside of Kenya and in Kampala at 20 degrees, it's mostly cloudy and showers expected with highs of 25. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 23 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 22 today. Taking a look where it's mostly cloudy in Johannesburg at 3 degrees, we'll see highs of 13 and lows of 1 today. Partly cloudy in Lagos at 25 degrees and likely to experience showers and thunderstorms intermittently, highs of 28 and lows of 23. In New York, it is still Wednesday night. It's cloudy conditions at 19 degrees. When the sun does come up, it'll do so to a high of 25 and lows of 17. Paris, clear skies at 16 degrees, a chance of showers and thunderstorms later with highs of 22 and lows of 13. And finally in London at 15 degrees, it's a rainy Thursday and it's likely to go throughout the day with highs of 19 and lows of 14.
This is the situation. Rome is Kenya's biggest conversation. Now, do you have your Safaricom mobile phone and you have 20 bob, at least 20 bob airtime on your phone? Now, you are going to be able to read the standard newspaper if you dial star 550 star 2 hash. That is star 550 star 2 hash. It'll just bring you a clear message that tells you will receive an SMS shortly. Once you receive that SMS, it'll have a link that you just click. It opens the newspaper, and that's it. You read the standard newspaper as it is. Page from page 1 to the final page of the standard today is page 48. That's the cover page. Now, for you to win 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime this morning, and that's between now and 7 o'clock, we'd like you to tell us on which page this story is, and it's in the standard newspaper. It's somewhere between page 1 and page 15 of the standard. Man admits using money he found in his account. Man admits using money that he found in his account. Now, this is a man who found 800,000 shillings credited in his bank account by mistake and quickly withdrew it to build a house. He has been charged with stealing the cash. Maurice Murangeri was charged before an Embu court that on diverse dates between December the 5th, 2009 and the 2nd of January this year, at Family Bank in Embu branch, he stole the money, which was deposited into his account by mistake. He found money in his account. He went ahead and withdrew the money, and now he's being accused of stealing the money in his own account.
It's not fair.
800,000 shillings.
It's not fair.
How did the money end up in that account? Now, there's a man called John Munenenjeru. John Munenenjeru was selling a piece of land to a man, somebody else. John Munenenjeru, by mistake, wrote the wrong account number to the person who is buying his piece of land. He told him, go and deposit the money in this account. Buyer of land goes and deposits money into that account that he's been given. Kumbe, that is not Mr. John Munenenjeru's account. That account belongs to Maurice Murangeri. 800,000 shillings gone. By the time Mr. Munenenjeru goes to his account, kuna ile pesa iliwekwa hapa nikauza shamba. Nothing. No money in Mr. Njeru's account. Hey, kujeni. I built a house.
Yeah, I've been blessed. It's
now
terrible.
The man is being sued.
Why? Did he force anybody?
He stole money in his account.
From his own account?
From his account.
How do you steal from yourself?
And he was released on a 200,000 shillings bond and a surety of a similar amount. This is punishing the man. Already telling him 200,000 shillings bond and surety of a similar amount.
It's 400k.
Yep. Can you imagine?
It was in his account.
And he found the money in his account.
He did not force it out of anybody's hand. He did not hold anybody at gunpoint. Who do you blame, really, at this point? Maybe he was expecting money and he just saw that that's the money that has come in.
Expecting or not, you go and find money in your account.
It's my account.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Where it has come from is immaterial.
It's irrelevant.
The headline to this story is Man admits using money that he found in his account. In what page is this story? What page of the Standard? It's somewhere between page 1 and page 15. If you call us right now on 0719-012-600, you will win 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime.
You know, you might want to rephrase that. You said if you call us right now, you'll win.
Yes.
Somebody will just pick the phone and call. If you call us now and give us the correct answer.
Okay. If you call us right now and give us the correct answer, you stand a chance.
There you go.
To win 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's between now and 7 o'clock. Siti Muga.
Yes.
Before we look at another newspaper headline, what is today's proverb?
Today's proverbs come from
county.
This one comes from Sierra Leone. 100 aunties is not the same as one mother.
Hey, yeah.
What's that reaction?
It's true.
Yeah?
It's true.
Let me repeat it for those who are hard of hearing. 100 aunties are not, or is not the same as one mother.
Okay.
It's true.
Tafakari hayo. Or hiyo. Or yeye.
Yeah. Tafakari huyo.
Wow.
Interesting story that you've seen in the papers, Ndu?
There's so much. The beast who hid the Bible, who hid behind the Bible to defile poor children. We're going to be having still a discussion about things around all of this today. But when Gregory Dow and his wife arrived in Bomet County with a promise to give orphans a bright future, villagers welcomed them with open arms. But on Monday, Dow pleaded guilty to sexually abusing 4 girls. And this story is on page 8. And I think it was just interesting that we're looking at the open arms kind of thing. That when anybody comes, it happened many, many years ago. Folk came with the Bible and we welcomed them with open arms. Little did we know that they were going to colonize everything down to the nail. This happened again. Came with the promise of salvation, and he positioned himself squarely to prey on children. And in terms of checks and balances, there were absolutely none. Remember yesterday we heard that in terms of a welfare system, this country does not have one for children.
Yep.
So who were they to go to at this point when something had gone terribly wrong? It had been 7 years, but the trauma that 4 girls endured in the hands of an American missionary they had grown to trust is still fresh. They were sexually molested by Gregory Dow, 61, at a children's home in Boito, Bomet County between 2013 and 2007. 17, I'm sorry. As a child, you never forget that face, the look of an animal looking at you, recalled Mercy, whose real name was withheld for purposes of protection. She's now a Form 2 student at a secondary school in Bomet and can see the abuser's tormenting eyes, and she still remembers his odor. She's one of the 4 girls at an orphanage Dow and his wife ran in the county. On Monday, he admitted during a federal court hearing in the United States, in Pennsylvania specifically, to having committed the crimes between 2013 and 2017. He is facing only 16 years in prison after pleading guilty.
Hey, this story was highlighted in the media and questions were asked on the government officers who are responsible for such, right? The local chief, the local children's services officers, all of them were being asked, all right, so this thing is happening. The local community has raised questions. In fact, the people who are saying the guardians who are taking the children to this facility were being denied access to the facility.
Yeah.
All these questions have been asked over and over and over again, and no proper action taken.
But I remember, Eric, very clearly at that time when it popped out some months back. Do you know what we were told? And we were told that an inquiry was going to be held and they were going to find out exactly what happened, and that if anything was
Shall open an investigation.
We'll open an investigation.
No stone will be left unturned.
There was no stone that was turned over. And just like you said yesterday, it took him having been charged and having to now plead to this in the United States.
Yep.
Not in Kenya.
Ended up back home. That's where he was charged, and that's where this happened. Even in other cases where there was the other pedophile, a young missionary boy who had come and he was working at a children's facility somewhere in, is it Githurai or Kaha West? And issues had been raised about this young man, and it had to take him going back home to be prosecuted at home in the States. And that's where he was found guilty. Kenyan system doesn't. So there's a huge breakdown in the Kenyan system. And it raises very many issues. Still on the same page, because this is on the page 8 of the Standard, there are 2 other stories about defilement.
Some heavy stuff.
There's a 52-year-old woman who is accusing a police officer based at Nangoma Police Post in Matayos constituency of defiling and impregnating her granddaughter.
Matayos is in Busia County.
Oh, okay.
There you go. And this, the Standard 8 pupil is said to have been defiled on diverse dates between December and May this year, and the grandmother is alleging that there was a scheme to protect the officer involved from facing the law. See? Woman has gone saying, this police officer has defiled my granddaughter, and now my granddaughter is pregnant, and what happens? She is feeling like the system is trying to protect one of their own. Another story here just below that one. Detectives in Baringo North have been asked to take action against a police officer accused of defiling a 14-year-old girl. Relatives of the girl claim that they reported the case at Kinyach police station on the 11th of June, but no action has been taken. The girl has since fled home, claiming that the officer has been threatening her after they reported the case. Officer has been saying, wewe ulienda kusema, utaona. Now, the girl, out of fear, has fled home. The parents have gone to report this case and said, look, this officer, the girl is telling us that this is the officer who defiled her. Now she's pregnant. We want action taken. No action seems to be taken.
This particular thing seems to be rearing its ugly head once again. These are just cases of things like this that have been reported. This is just what is being reported. The likelihood, I mean, we know from studies that have been done that the actual cases are much, much more than this. And to see now that we actually have custodians of the law, custodians of security, now being accused of such is actually a little bit saddening, because we saw a rise specifically on this from studies that have been done between the early 2000s going to the mid 2000s, whereby there was a heightened case of abuse by police officers on women. There was this famous case of the Kilimani where a lady went in, interestingly enough, to report rape, and then ended up being raped by the policemen on duty who were actually taking her statement. That was the famous case that kind of now blew everything out of the water. So now, about 10 years later, it's very sad to see the same thing now rearing its head again. Chances are that it was still happening, but in terms of reporting, it became latent, but we are seeing a rise.
I think the point here is that usually people will report. Parents will report. Guardians will report these cases. Notice that your child is pregnant, you ask the child, so what happened?
What happened here?
And then the child will say, this is what happened. And then you report this particular case. You'll either go to the chief or to the local police station, and then you'll start taking the child to hospital to go through, the process. Or even some parents will try and procure abortion for their children, but it is reported. How much action do we see getting taken?
Action is not being taken.
That's the point. 26 minutes to 7. Let's take a quick break, take a look at the traffic, and then this conversation continues. Good morning.
Much happening on the roads right about now. We see heightened levels on Mombasa Road, but everybody seems to be moving along quite smoothly. Not much of an issue right now. So far, so good. Other parts of the city as well, coming out of Thika Road is all right. In and outbound looks just fine. Westlands is moving slowly, but it is moving all the same. Getting into the CBD will not be too much of a headache right about now. We're going to take a look at it when it will have built up in about half hour or so. If there is anything you see in the meantime, do let us know. SpiceFemKE on Twitter. Let's know what's going on. But for now, It looks good. Let us know what you see.
Right, so we will revisit the story of children defilement cases on the rise and social protection that they are supposed to be getting and not receiving from various government agencies later at 9 o'clock. Well, we'll also look at what is trending now, the story of the reported cases of 4,000 adolescents between the ages of 10 and 18 who have reportedly become pregnant. And this is what exactly is happening in Machakos County. We also have the reaction from the governor yesterday. So we'll talk about this. Yes.
Okay. If we can't get away from it, let's look at the top page of the Standard and what is there. Kibicho fights for his job over Waiguru ouster row. Interior Principal Secretary starts off by saying it wasn't me and finds himself in unfamiliar territory after he was linked to a push to kick out the embattled Kirinyaga governor. Yesterday, he dared his accusers to table evidence linking him to this dispute. I dare you to show me how exactly I am involved in this thing.
Show me the evidence.
Where did I say? Where
Jim
was
Orengo
I?
said he knows who's behind this and he has the evidence.
He fought off claims that he had a hand in the June 9th vote by MCAs against the governor, with whom he has had a long-running feud related to governance affairs in their county home turf. He's one of the most powerful men in President Uhuru Kenyatta's inner circle. His influence is demonstrated by constant accusations by the Tanga wing of Jubilee, and he's among top officials in the president's office, frustrating Deputy President William Ruto. But with the claims that he's working for Waiguru's downfall, Kibicho, in an ironic twist, finds himself sharing the blame with the Ruto camp that is openly pushing for the governor's ouster. The most recent battle between Kibicho and Waiguru was over the controversial 15 billion Kenya Medical Research Institute project in Kirinyaga. He says, and I quote, "I have heard these allegations. People should stop deep sea fishing." Choose another hobby. It is now a public thing and it has generated public interest, even reported in the media. I want to face my accusers and settle this matter.
Let's see I do not expect that anybody will come out and say this is the evidence that we have and this is that Kibicho played a hand in this directly by even saying the motion was drafted in Kibicho's office. Or here is Kibicho having a meeting with his MCAs.
Here is a picture.
And them agreeing, and the point of discussion was the ouster of Waiguru. It's going to be a bit hard, but let us see.
Let us see.
Let us see how this one unfolds, don't we?
You know, there's something about a conspiracy. Most conspiracies, people don't actually sit down and
craft them.
Not really.
Yeah.
There's just a general understanding that certain things ought to be done. And when people get together, because of that general understanding, people will take certain positions and start moving in certain directions. But, so if you're looking for evidence, the evidence is embodied in an individual.
Yeah.
And if the individual comes out and says, this is what
happened.
Oh, this is what we discussed. And that you're not going to get.
Itakuwa ngumu kidogo. Let's just put it that way. Itakuwa ngumu, hard small.
Had plenty.
We still have this the pending 1,000 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime to give out. If you call in and answer correctly and tell us in what page this story is. Man admits using money that he found in his account. You can access the Standard newspaper by dialing *550*2# and just 20 bob. You get to read the Standard. Peter Carrier in Mombasa. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine. You're good?
We're well, thank you. You'd like to try this challenge this morning?
Yes, sir.
In what page is this story?
It is page 12.
Page 12 of the Standard.
Yes.
Mr. Carrier, congratulations, you get it right. The headline, if you don't mind, you can just read for us the headline.
Man admits using money he found in his account.
True. And this is a man in
It was 800,000.
800,000 shillings. What would you have done if you found money in your account, Peter?
Go to the bank reception and maybe ask them, this money is not from someone that I know.
Uh-huh. So
To be honest.
you'd play honest.
You know, I know when you use someone's money, maybe you might get away with it, but one day, someone will also go with your money.
Utapatikana.
Ukikula haramu,
Utapatikana.
utapatikana.
Congratulations. Well done, Peter Carrier. Just stay on the line, speak to our producer, John, and he'll take your details. Stay tuned to Spice FM.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Ukikula haramu utapatikana. You see, Ndu? We have honest people in this country,
Well done.
right? Honest people. You're the kind of people who receive money on M-Pesa and immediately transfer.
Who is you are the kind of people?
You.
Hey, why are you
It
accusing
is
me falsly?
you.
You know, such cases are not new in this country, really. But many of the cases that perhaps have even gone to court or even the High Court have been cases where it is the bank who have erroneously transferred money into the individual's accounts.
Yep.
And I was looking at some of the cases that we've had in this country. The person into whose account the money had been deposited, I have not seen a case where they won. Maybe the others that, but I have not seen a case where they won.
The bank always wins.
The bank won. So in this case, I suspect that our friend here,
He's going to lose.
yep, who has already admitted to using the money,
He was paid.
wisdom should dictate that he ought to find a way of, should we say, planning to pay?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Because sometimes a payment plan is important.
That's probably what they'll give him.
Not necessarily. Not
This could be
necessarily.
now a settlement out of court with the man who was supposed to have been the original recipient of the money, John Munene. Maybe they just agree, all right, so this is what happened. I found the money in my account. Mimi nikaenda nikatoa pesa, just like I would do with M-Pesa. But now, this is 800,000 shillings. Here is a house.
Problem is he shut the account down.
You can't take the house, so let's work out how I'm going to pay you this money. And then now they make a proper settlement that is sealed in court. However, I don't know. Because you see, here is the issue is he's being accused of theft. Being accused of theft is one thing, it's criminal. You'll be taken to court, you'll be charged, you'll be jailed. What happens?
but
Does
then that
Jero get his
particu-
money?
Yeah, but the being accused of theft is tricky. He didn't actually
He didn't actually go steal it from
the
someone.
money. It was in his
It was
account.
actually placed in his account. He actually didn't go and steal
Fraudulent
it.
behavior, maybe, but theft. How do you steal something that is in your account?
Yeah.
They're going to argue, of course, that it wasn't yours.
But the account was mine,
you
and their
clearly
contents, the contents of
Of
the
course,
account.
he clearly knows, but the
Did-
argument will also be he didn't put the money there.
Yeah. Did you deposit those money in your account? No.
No.
But money that comes into your account is not only deposited by you. Other people can deposit money
All
in your
right.
account.
Do you know the source of this money? Do you have anybody with whom you transacted? Maybe unless he goes and creates someone and says,
Eric, I know such cases personally, and I'll tell you this. Many banks will ask your permission. If money has been erroneously deposited into your account and they want to reverse that particular transaction, they will ask your permission. They'll say, look, this money isn't yours. It was transferred. Could we possibly, if you do not agree, they do not touch it. And usually that is not their money.
imagine.
Somebody
It
else.
is somebody else's
somebody
money
else's
that
money.
they've put in your account.
Yes, and if you don't accept, and if indeed, say, they reverse that particular transaction without your consent or your say-so, then the situation could get very, very ugly for the bank.
So the month he withdrew this money between the 5th of December when it was deposited and the 2nd of January when there was no more money in that account, right? So in 30 days, in about a month, he has withdrawn 800,000 shillings. Of course, he never went to withdraw the entire 800,000 shillings at a go, probably, right? Maybe he just kept going in.
She was building in installments.
There's another interesting story still on this page of page 12 of the Standard. A very ingenious man. This gentleman is called Maure Idula. He is the CEO of a company called Rec East Africa Limited. Now, Mr. Maure went to an organization, a government organization called I'm going to tell you this organization shortly. Yeah, I've lost it. Kenya Industrial Research and Development Institute, KIRDI. So the Kenya Industrial Research and Development Institute helps companies also to come up. When you come up with an innovative idea, you can go to KIRDI. It also helps to incubate your idea, helps you go through the whole process of registering the IP, registering the business, starting off the business. His very brilliant business idea was making chewing gum. Chewing gum made from miraa. Now, you know, people who chew miraa know what chewing gum means to miraa. Miraa is to chewing gum what mandazi is to tea.
Oh, it's like gin and tonic, miraa and chewing gum.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
It's like what tonic is to gin.
Okay.
So this man decided, all right, how about instead of all those things, if you're going to buy a different type of chewing gum, why don't we just make chewing gum with miraa?
Okay.
Brilliant idea. Went to KIRDI, presented the idea. They loved it. They helped him to develop it. They helped him to register it. He got a certificate from KIRDI, and then he started taking the product to the market. But now the Kenya Bureau of Standards Head of Quality Assurance and Inspection, Bernard Nguyo, says we have not issued this product with standardization mark because it needs to go through another process. The legal procedure for such a product is products that have miraa as ingredients are classified as psychotropic substances whose manufacture and sale is controlled under the Narcotics and Psychotropic Substances Act. So you enter a different realm here. Because what you are selling contains miraa, it now becomes a psychotropic substance. So you need to apply through a different act. So it has to go through some different checks and regulations. So for us to give you the standard mark of quality, for this product to be allowed to be sold in the market, you need to have gone through this. Now there's a back push and pull here because KIRDI is saying, come on, we helped this guy develop and we helped him go through the whole process,
Should be
the
fine.
range of applications and the range of everything. As far as we are concerned, it does not need a psychotropic substance verification. And KEBS is saying, no, it must. And Mr. Maore Ithula himself is arguing, miraa is grown in Kenya. It's exported and the government recognizes it. The law recognizes miraa as a scheduled crop. Whether still under incubation at KIRDI, we were advised that no license is required any of the many projects. Incubation means that KIRDI midwives new innovations, nurtures them by taking care of all infrastructural costs, government levies and licenses, among others. So a government agency told this guy, you're ready, take
You're
it to the
good.
market.
And yet
Another government agency says, no.
Bring it here.
Bottom line, brilliant innovation.
I think so.
No need to go and
actually.
buy chewing gum when you're chewing miraa. Just go and buy chewing gum and you'll have miraa.
You'd have chewing miraa.
And you'll have chewing miraa.
Why doesn't someone come up with an innovation where you can chew alcohol?
It'll come. It's in chocolates.
See, I don't know if it's what you've said or the look on your face.
All this time he's listening to miraa. I don't
And he's
chew
thinking,
miraa. So what do I consume? What else?
There's
What
something
else?
else. I never have to start mixing things. I can just put it in my mouth once and for
That's the
all.
whole thing of gin and tonic. Why not have a gin and tonic sweet?
Jonic.
Chop chop.
Just pop it in your mouth.
So you're comfortably and quietly
Imbibing.
just getting mellow as you suck on the sweet.
There are sweets that contain and chocolates that contain alcohol.
There are.
Yeah, but the sort of quantities
And cookies that contain psychotropic substances.
Substances. There are.
And
those
cakes.
ones,
Quite
yes,
confectionery.
and cakes.
I think that it maybe points to the fact that innovation is rife in this country.
That's the point.
That's the point. Innovation is rife, and some of these things, I mean, for sure, need to be harnessed and encouraged, because the principle behind all of this, that, you have people right here who can do a lot of things that, unfortunately, we keep looking outside for.
And the other thing is that there's a government agency that can help you.
Yes, for
If you
almost
come up
nothing.
with such,
in
you
terms
can
of what you
actually
have to
go
dole
to them.
out.
And it's important for KIRDI then to be speaking out and saying the
They're
Kenya
funded.
Industrial Research
Yeah, they're
Development
funded by
Institute,
government to do
it's a
this.
government
Yeah.
entity. It helps in industrial research and development. Come with any kind of innovation. We help you. We take you through the whole process. and we help you in a route to market.
But what is
It's
also
free.
of
And
interest
development
is
and
that
scaling
these
and-
interagency rivalries. Remember how they kept playing out with the sort of donations that had come in for COVID?
Yeah.
You get to hear that.
Kemri,
Yes, I have this issue with this.
the
it's-
infectious diseases unit.
Yes, and you know, these are all government agencies who are supposed to be putting the energies together to fight,
COVID.
well, this common enemy. Here you're hearing Kenya Bureau of Standards have come in and said, no, actually, no.
This one.
No. This discussion could be a quiet discussion. And said, okay, look, this is what you haven't done. Go and do this. And then we'll be
We'll
okay
help
with
you
it.
do this.
We'll okay, yes.
Or even just clearly asking Kebs, all right, so we've come up with this. Just check. Is there anything that we've missed?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Kebs would have
It's a
said,
quiet
all right,
discussion.
no. Yes, this is
But
what
but
happened.
this one now, suddenly, as it's being reported, is acrimonious. And it doesn't need to be.
And there's a man who's wondering, why are you applying brakes? I've worked so hard. I basically was going to market. I was already looking at market projections and how I'm going to grow and develop this business. Now you're already taking me back and telling me psychotropic. What is that, psychotropic? 10 minutes to 7. This is the situation of Miss Kenya's biggest conversation. We are looking at interesting stories that have been covered in today's newspapers. We still have a lot to cover. Keep it right here.
You are tuned in to Nairobi's #1 soul station, Spice FM.
So there was a bit of confusion at some point around there was a celebration, when a team scored a goal and then doesn't look at the line.
Spice up your life.
Start celebrating. And then
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
And it's not as though it's literally hands that something.
he's basically saying, not a goal. It's an out.
Mornings
So at some
done
point
right.
last night, Kenyans went up in jubilation saying that we have secured one of the slots in the non-permanent seats in the UN Security Council, beating Djibouti, getting all 113 votes, and Djibouti, who are trying to be stubborn, only managing 78. We have beaten them, so Kenya secures a seat. And then we looked and we saw linesman holding the flag. What is it? No. The rule says that you need to get 2/3 of the votes. You needed 127. You have 113. So it's a runoff. So basically, our campaign to secure this slot has been delayed.
Yep.
Well, our celebrations have been delayed because today there's going to be a runoff. Just these two countries, and to secure the Africa slot, Kenya and Djibouti. Djibouti managed to convince 78 nations from across the world to vote for them.
Why are you sounding?
Maybe
Why
they
are you
didn't
speaking in
need-
wonder?
Eric, maybe they didn't need to convince the 78 nations.
Maybe the 78 nations convinced Djibouti to stay on.
Probably, yes. Remember, the issue here may not even be Djibouti and Kenya. Djibouti and Kenya may just have provided an opportunity
proxy
for
for-
some other enmities to play out again.
Yeah.
So this country is supporting Djibouti, and some other country don't really get along with that one. They are not going to support this. They're going to go to the other side.
Yep.
Yes.
Not because they necessarily support the other side, but because
They
of
have
their
no quarrel. with
lack of
Dji-
support.
No,
for
they don't have a
Djibouti.
problem with Djibouti or
Yeah.
Kenya. But given that this person, this individual, this country that is their enemy, or this country that they don't get along with, has chosen to support Djibouti, they'll support Kenya.
The American delegation voted for Kenya. So now the question is, where did the Chinese delegation vote? Because this now starts playing out.
But
Just
haven't
like I said.
is there not an indication
Just like you
as to
say.
who voted for who? Or is it secret ballot?
Well, they come out and say this is who we voted for. I'm not sure whether it's secret or whether it's clear on how on who voted on which side. It's not been reported in today's paper. I haven't actually seen any of the reports. But here's the point. The point is that Djibouti got 78. So we have to go and try and pry a couple of them to come and vote for us in this second round. If Djibouti doesn't do one better and pull all our 112. Anyway, so we were asking ourselves, what does it mean? Higher. Being a member of the Security Council, as a non-permanent member, Kenya may not have much clout on substantive decisions which are often manipulated by the permanent members with veto powers, but being a member brings with it a chance to be president of the council, a rotational post where you can push through your agenda. It also enables the country a chance to elevate its agenda and image on a global stage. So we can go in there and say, okay, now we can be chair of this council. When you're chair of the council, when you have a couple of agenda that we want to push, for example, in our fight against terrorism, insecurity and all, we can place it on the table. We'll be discussing it on the table.
Yeah, the entire status of being in the room is what you're looking for.
That's
At least
it.
I'm in the room, and now here, and now my voice can be heard. It's a step up the ladder in the door, as it were.
You'll constantly be reminded your position in that room, but at least you're there.
Yeah, at least you're in the room,
Yeah.
as opposed to others who are not.
Yes.
Okay, so yesterday we spoke about the SGR and the whole hullabaloo of trying to now get cargo out of Naivasha, aid clearance agents still in Mombasa, etc. So it seems that the SGR cargo order has been put on hold. The High Court in Nairobi has suspended a directive by the government to have goods destined for Uganda, Rwanda, and South Sudan transported by SGR to Naivasha Inland Container Depot. Justice Pauline Nyamwea, in her ruling in a case filed by activist and none other than Okia Omtata, ordered the state not to effect the notice by Transport Cabinet Secretary James Macharia until further orders by the court. According to her, the leave so granted herein to institute these judicial reviews proceedings shall operate as a stand and or suspension of the notice on transit cargo published by the first respondent on the 22nd of May 2020 by the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure, pending the hearing and determination of the ex parte applicants. The Cabinet Secretary had said East Africa's heads of states had agreed to have all cargo moved from the port of Mombasa freighted by rail to Naivasha for onward transmission during a consultative meeting held through video conference on the 9th of May.
It will be interesting to know who has had a chat with Omtata.
It is said that there are industry players, stakeholders, and the public in Kenya, represented then by Okia Omtata.
Okay.
Yes. So, small win, big win, but a win.
It's a pause.
It's a
You know,
pause.
if all
It's a comma.
members,
It's a disruption
comma.
in our fight against COVID. A very unfortunate disruption.
if indeed the heads of state sat and discussed this particular matter and agreed, then why is it that Uganda is kicking such a fuss? There's a minister who wrote. You know, this is not hearsay. We're not guessing. This guy actually wrote.
He did.
Let's see how this one unfolds.
On the ground, things are.
Let's see how it unfolds. I think it will, like we said yesterday, it just goes back into the planning and the implementation by the Ministry of Transport,
And the
Infrastructure,
end user
Housing,
and their
Urban
contribution to
Development.
this
Yes.
was not taken into consideration.
Coming to the top of the hour, City. Today's proverb, mummies and aunties.
Well, 100 aunties are not the same as one mother.
This is from which country again?
Sierra Leone.
It's a Sierra Leonean.
Sierra Leone.
Okay. 100 aunties are not the same
As one mother.
as one mother.
No.
Keep it right here. The conversation continues. Remember, we are live streaming on Spice FM KE, www.spicefm.co.ke. And you can call in 0719 012 Good morning. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 7 o'clock.
All right, getting into the CBD, there's an accident right at the GPO roundabout involving a cargo truck, no less. Police are on the scene trying to figure that out, but this is what it means. All traffic coming in from Westlands on Uhuru Highway, all traffic coming in from Langata, Mombasa Road, also on Uhuru Highway, is going to be affected by this because it is laying right across the roundabout, and this has happened just a few minutes ago. So that'll affect all traffic. So that if you're seeing there's a holdup, this is the reason why. Mombasa Road, then heading towards Simba Cement. There's traffic to and from, in and outbound on Mombasa Road. The traffic has already begun just a minute after 7 o'clock. All right, it's going to be an interesting Tuesday from what we see, because the Thika Superhighway already has built up. It took 10 minutes about half an hour ago. Now it looks like it's going to take about an hour. So yes, things have started on quite a high note in terms of how we are going to see traffic unfold. We'll give you more details as we go along. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let's see if we can get people using a better route if you find one.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times.
How are you
Ndu
starting your
Ogo,
day in
Nigerian by
Mombasa
birth,
on
Kenyan by
87.9,
choice,
102.5
communications
in
expert,
Kisumu,
Pan-Africanist, a
96.0,
truth seeker
Eldoret
and believer in
96.7,
people power,
Malindi
and Eric
97.7,
Latif.
Nyeri 90.9, or Nairobi 94.4, or wherever you are around the world on www.spicefm.co.ke. Or Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Or I've received a message from Joe in Shanghai, China, who says, I'm getting you guys live and clear via the Simple Radio app. Karibuni sana, watu wa China, ni hao. Now, Seti Muga. Ni nini? Ni what?
Ni hao.
Ni hao. Seti, we saw some movement yesterday in politics. Kalonzo pitted katikati yao, found himself in Pangani, Jubilee headquarters, sat down and signed a cooperation agreement with Jubilee. Same thing was done by the man from Mashinani. Alitoka Mashinani, akakuja Nairobi, akasign cooperation agreement with Jubilee. So we now have how many parties that are cooperating with Jubilee? ODM.
Is KANU already part of that setup?
KANU has
Yes.
a coalition
There's a coalition.
agreement with Jubilee. ODM has a handshake with Jubilee. Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper has a coalition, and cooperation agreement with Jubilee. And Chama cha Mashinani has the same kind of agreement with Jubilee. So basically we're saying, first of all, Jubilee has NASA. NASA wamenaswa na Jubilee. The only people who are left now on that side are Amani National Congress and Ford Kenya wing of Moses Wetangula. Because now there's another wing of SLCMU. Okay?
And
So those two, Amani and Ford Kenya, are left in NASA, not cooperating with Jubilee. The others, Chama cha Mashinani, Wiper, and ODM, have been naswad in the net. What is happening? What is
what
this?
is happening is what has happened before. I mean, again, with Kenyan politics, we're not seeing anything that we have not seen before. Do you know how terrible it is for a politician to be out in the cold where you're just a simple mwananchi? People call you Mheshimiwa because they used to calling you Mheshimiwa. But all the freebies that come with the job, with you being in government, aren't there. There's no massive car with fuel paid for you that is there. Now, all these delightful free trips where you can go everywhere around the world, people at your beck and call. You know, all this is gone. Gone. So, when you've been out in the cold, you look and you realize perhaps this being close to government is not entirely bad. Because, not entirely. And because with it, not only comes promises, but there will be a decent allocation of whatever it is that the government is allocating for the citizens of its country to you. And even if it's just part of the plan, a government plan, because of your position, they can hasten the actual process of implementing it. Because usually it's next to impossible to have something done if it wasn't budgeted for.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So it can be planned for, but it simply won't happen. But now, when you're close to the seat of power, you then have an opportunity to actually have this done. Your voice is heard a little clearer, and it is a lot easier for you to actually get to be, should we say, at the table where decisions are made. Yes. And anyone who's been in politics, especially the high end of it, will know this, and they will want to get back in there. Yes. Remember, there are people who are going to say, oh, this is a poke in the DP's eye. Not really. It's just looking after number one. Yes. This wind is clearly blowing in a certain direction. It isn't the first time this wind has blown. Not really.
Yeah.
The first time this wind blew is when KPU was formed. And at that time, there was a dramatic move. All you needed to do was cross the floor of Parliament.
Actually, before that, Kadu.
Yes, but that was a quiet one. That was just an arrangement, quiet, people agreed.
Swallowed up
and people moved on. And as usual, you were told you will have this, you will get this, you'll do the other thing. And remember, all those guys joined government as ministers.
Yep.
So, why I mentioned KPU was unique in that people crossed the floor, and then some clever person in Kanu said, you know something, these guys can't just cross the floor.
Yeah.
They're still members of Kanu. So this seat of theirs is a Kanu seat.
It's a Kanu seat.
So, fine, cross the floor, but you need...
Go back to the people.
Yes, you have to. We need to go back to the people. Hey. Now we witnessed the first rigging in this country. Because I remember, because I lived and grew up in Nakuru, and I remember being told of stories where ballot boxes were being found in Njoro River. Okay? So here you are at a situation when the government was facing a serious problem. Because those who crossed over were many. And they were from all over the country. They represented almost a good, a kaleidoscope of the population of this particular country. So, when they went to KPU, some realized, I am not going back to the electorate.
I go to the people.
No. I want this one by a whisker.
That risk is too high.
No. They just went back. Now, the next time we saw this, if you recall correctly, was when now, during the Moi government, it didn't quite appear until, because it was just one party, Moi, Kanu, and everybody was in Kanu. Now, that one was one of these unique situations where the choice, you had a choice, yes. Join Kanu, the other choice, join Kanu. Yes. So, then Raila Odinga decided at some point, he also joined Kanu, please remember, after multi-partyism. When he joined Kanu, what happened? He then decided to leave Kanu. And there was an exodus. But remember, before that, we had Ford Kenya. Before we had Ford Kenya and Ford Asili, we had Ford.
Yeah. People form, people splinter, people come back. I mean, it's just a constant movement of...
Yes, it was. And Ford, as it was originally constituted, was a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Powerful. And it looked like Moi is done for. Then Ford just split. And Moi, the political genius, won. Because during the time of multipartism, there's no time that Moi even got 40% of the votes. But we didn't have this 50+1 rule. No, just a majority. The votes were so splintered
that it'd have the highest
he'd have the highest one. So would take this from his community, you take this from your community, and everybody wanted to be president. Now, here we are again in a situation where, following the 2007 movement of the coalition, and I think looking back at the successes that we achieved with the coalition, someone realizes that, sometimes we are actually a lot better off when we're working together. We've tried this thing.
It's calmer. It's
and progress can be made.
Everybody benefits.
Yes, and the truth of the matter is this: you can actually be a check and balance within that particular setup. But what I want to see, I'm waiting to see, is how those who've been left out in the cold are actually going to function. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to see quite a lot of scrambling. It may not look as hectic as the word suggests, but I think that behind the scenes you're going to see a lot of people who, like you say, have been left out in the cold or have been given the bitter pill to swallow, then trying to find a way that they can get in, whatever door it is, because that power that you have, that sphere of influence within which you're able to operate, is very sweet, and the opposite is not fun, like you say. So I think there's going to be a lot of scrambling. There are going to be people who are going to find themselves wanting to be aligned to make sure that they remain just that, in that position.
What often happens with a monolith such as the one that they're creating is that when you have an election, then you'll have the hue and cry. Because there's some people who will think, no,
This is our strong
we
zone.
ought to be given this.
Yeah.
We've supported these guys, we ought to be given this.
Yeah.
And they will move.
Again.
Yes.
Or maybe at that point we'll cross the bridge when we get there. This reminds me, like I've been saying, of late 2005. After the referendum of 2005, where Orange won and the draft constitution was rejected, then we saw Mwai Kibaki make similar moves. There was opposition from within, and these are the people of NDP and the others now who had to be kicked out, Raila and his allies. And then the president, at that point, decided to approach the other political parties.
Yes.
He went to KANU, Chairman Uhuru Kenyatta.
Went to Ford
They
Kenya.
agreed to work together. That's how Kinantimama ended up in Parliament. He went to Ford Kenya. He went, Ford Kenya was already in with Kijana Wamalwa. They were already cooperating from the very beginning. He went to Ford People with Simeon Nyachae, brought them in. So now he called it the Government of National Unity. So the 2005 to 2007 government.
Ngilu's party was also brought in.
Yeah, Ngilu's party was there initially, but Ngilu now joined the Orange people. So she
Out.
By 2007, Ngilu was not in this government. Remember, so and that's when now she decided that she's the original owner of NAC, which is the National Rainbow Coalition that had come together to form government. And there are some MPs who had gone into parliament under a party called NAC.
They were.
And so Ngilu decided now NAC was registered under me and I was the leader, so it's my party.
We're carrying on with it.
She has remained with NAC. GNU was formed. We saw KANU, we saw Ford People, we saw other smaller parties coming to work with Mwai Kibaki's government.
Don't forget DP.
And DP was Kibaki's party. They were all there. So, similar kind of thing that's happening. What I'm also seeing now is, of course, with this kind of movements, the people who are signing agreements are not just expecting that, we are signing and then we'll be sitting there to be signed off. No, they're expecting goodies.
There'll be a reshuffle.
So, getting slots into the cabinet.
There'll be a reshuffle. I mean, there are those who ask, but if you've been in the position of governor, if you've been a vice president, why then would you take the position of cabinet minister? It is a prestigious position. It is a powerful position, and it keeps you relevant in politics. It's just that in this country, we seem to think that everybody must be president.
Yeah.
In order to be powerful.
Yes, but if you look at countries that perhaps have been at this thing longer than we have, currently, the Prime Minister of Israel is called Netanyahu. Do we know how many times that man has been Prime Minister?
That man has been Prime
He's
Minister,
been Prime Minister,
Finance Minister,
everlasting.
Finance Minister, Foreign Affairs Minister. He's been everything. As long as he's somewhere in cabinet.
In an everlasting position of power in Israel.
You know what is of interest? If you look at, say, for instance, France after World War I, those guys had 4 former heads of state in cabinet. 4 former heads of state. In the cabinet.
In the cabinet.
Yes.
They're sitting there.
They're sitting there. They're heads of state. I mean, so this calls for a very, very dramatic shift of the way we look at things. Anyone who understands politics and what is required of it will know that the key thing is to remain relevant. Not everybody has the position that Raila Odinga has, where whether you're in parliament or not, you're completely relevant.
Yeah.
His is unique, completely unique. In fact, you sometimes get the impression that when he's out of government or in power, he's even more powerful.
He's more powerful outside government.
Yes. Now, that is a unique position that no other politician in this country can claim to have. So the rest, if you're wise, you want to be in a position where you are relevant. with our politics, that is. So I expect more movement.
Yep. I think let's continue this discussion after we take a look at the weather and start asking ourselves, so what do we expect to see coming forward? What do we expect to see a Wiper gaining in this coalition? What do we expect to see KANU gaining in this? What do we expect to see CCM? And what's the move? You have two Rift Valley-based parties, CCM and KANU, that are coming in. And remember, we have the Deputy President and his stronghold. What's the implication of all this in the movement? 16 minutes after 7. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Join the conversation on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And you can also call in 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Good morning.
Yeah, so that accident on Uhuru Highway is going to take a minute to get out. So it's blocking traffic. So everything coming in from Valley Road, everything coming in from Uhuru Highway in the direction of Westlands, and then anything coming into town from Uhuru Highway the direction of Nyayo Stadium is not going to be able to get into the CBD right now because this truck has fallen right across the roundabout and it's causing a mess already. And everybody's complaining about it right now. So if you're heading in that direction, that's what you're likely to face. If you can use an alternate route to get where you're going the longer way to avoid this, I think that would be the best option right now. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck for a while. Coming off Thika Road is not too terrible right now. Getting to the Globe Cinema, that roundabout, it won't take you too long to get into the CBD, although getting out, though, you might be stuck because of this accident that has happened there. All right, on Mombasa Road, it's looking pretty good. Not too bad, right around the SGR and then heading towards General Motors, coming off of Cabanas. It's all right. Thika Road is actually moving very nicely this morning. Not much traffic. We'll see what it looks like in about half hour or so. But that's what it looks like for now, guys. Spice of MKE, you see something we should know about, do let us know so we can make it easier for everybody to move about this morning, won't you?
In this new shape of things. The Nation headline, Uhuru's axe to fall on CSAs and parastatal chiefs after signing deals to work with party leaders Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Gideon Moi and Isaac Ruto. The president is expected to bring their allies into his government as he moves to implement his legacy projects before the end of his term. Both the president and DP Ruto's men are targeted for the chop. So it'll eat its own children.
But
basically,
broadly
there are people who
speaking,
are very loyal, who are still in the Kialeweke side, who have not moved to Tanga at all. They've remained so loyal and calm in government. But because of this new arrangement, now, my friend, Ebu amkia yo kiti, wachanko akalie, that's what's going to happen.
you know, the moment you enter politics, whatever form and shape that you have decided is your mode of choice, it behoves you to actually understand what this game is all about. You make a decision, you understand the consequence of this decision, in this sphere that I'm in is going to be this. Okay, there are people who've been supporters of Kibaki for the longest time when they had DP. When Kibaki became president, we saw them rewarded.
Yep.
We saw them, people given good portfolio jobs, positions, and what have you.
Yep.
It's politics.
Yeah.
In politics, cronyism is accepted. Now, Our politics is not complicated. In fact, it's very simple to understand because everyone you're talking about has been together with each at some point or the other. These fellows have been in the same boat, same room, same party at some point. So it's not as though they don't know how to work together.
What is driving the president to want to bring all these people together? I mean, he already has ODM, he has Raila cooperating. He's safe.
It's called
Is he doing this so that Ruto does not get a chance to talk to these people? Is he like basically just pulling a fast one? Why bring in Kalonzo and Wiper?
But also,
Kalonzo and Wiper have been working very well with government. Is it out of trying to outsmart Ruto by Ruto not going to work with Kalonzo and Wiper or to work with Ruto CCM?
what we're discussing is formalizing the relationship.
Yeah.
It's been there, but it's being formalized. That's number one. Secondly, please remember that if these other parties are not formally in a setup, they don't have a documented handshake, then the problem you have is as a dependence on ODM. Sometimes bringing it to two other groups informally, what you've done is you've sort of
Even ODM, you've balanced out ODM.
You've widened
Yes.
your sphere.
Yes.
So then you also widened your options for backup in
Yes.
case something goes wrong. And we have to be very aware that this is politics. So the likelihood of something going wrong somewhere not too far down the line is also very high.
Yeah.
So guess what? Something goes wrong, you have a backup. You have other people that have also pledged their allegiance to you so that all your eggs per se are not in this proverbial basket.
It's basically creating redundancies.
Well, that's one way of looking at it, but it's also creating a check and balance. Because remember, if you go by the one good example we have of the 2007 coalition,
Yeah.
that group were a check and balance unto themselves.
Just by making noise.
They
No,
did.
what are you
No,
doing?
no,
No, what are you
what's
doing?
also
No,
doing?
no, no,
No,
no,
we
no,
can't.
no,
Yes,
no,
they
no,
were
no.
a proper check and balance. So things ended up actually working. Yes.
And when they agreed to steal, they agreed to steal properly.
Yes, and
together.
Once in a while they would agree nicely, but most times you'd find an issue as a reason and say, no, this one here, remember that you then have a presidency. The real jostling is not for this reshuffle. No. It isn't. The real jostling in my mind is for the position that will be created by a referendum and what positions people hope to get after the election.
The referendum and the election.
Election, yes. That really is what's going on here.
So it's actually positioning ahead of 2022.
Yes, it's wise political positioning because if you have a president and a prime minister, the president has to be deputized. The prime minister has to be deputized.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is it's not a 2-kilogram cake. This is a 5-kilogram cake, and you can divide it. Everyone can get a nice, decent chunk.
A piece of. Wilberforce in Nyamira, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Eric.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Yes, very fine.
Welcome.
Good
to
morning,
the
Indu,
situation.
and the city Muga.
Hi. Good morning, sir.
Yes, very fine. I want to contribute to the motion, or rather, I'm calling it a motion, whatever.
To the conversation.
Yes, conversation. Before I think I'm into politics.
Yes, Bas. This is your right down your alley. What's happening
Okay,
here, Wilberforce?
Now there are about 2, 3, or 4 expectations or happenings that we expect to see before 2022. Now, in answering why Uhuru Kenyatta is doing all that he's doing, trying to bring everyone aboard, I think, as Muga has put it, there are possibilities of anything to happen in politics. And therefore, Uhuru, being clever, as he seems to be, he knows having Raila Odinga on his side alone may not be safe enough. And I think that's what I do. Even if anyone who has lived for the few decades I've lived and has seen Raila Odinga's politics would automatically do that. Why? Because
you're never safe.
You are never safe.
You're never safe with Raila.
You are never safe with Raila. If you were there, and I know you were there, I used to listen to you reading news at around midnight in the early part of this century. What happened in 2002? Between 201 and 202, there were a lot of changes caused by this man, Raila Odinga.
Mm-hmm.
He's a man who, if we go back to history, stepped down from Ford Kenya and went to NDP.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you think NDP was just registered on 31st December 2007, where I mean 1997?
No.
No, it was just somewhere, and he knew it was there. Come to the year 2002 when he joined KANU.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought Raila is just like John Obi Mikel, for those of you who know football. A man who could come in not to score goals, but to make sure the opponents don't see the ball. He's just there, just to destroy in
disruptor.
between. Yes. He went into KANU. He made Wakina Kalonzo to begin speaking. Yeah. The likes of the late Josh Saitoti, they were there, but they never spoke.
They developed
when
a
he walked
backbone.
out on 24th October, the city might remember better than me.
Mm-hmm.
When he walked out with the whole lot. Where was LDP? The Liberal Democratic
By the way, he left. Mudavadi remained.
Mudavadi remained, and he left with the Kalonzo and Wakina Kamozo and what have you, and went into the Liberal Democratic Party.
Yep.
A party that we had not seen before. Of course, I was a small boy in secondary school then.
We had never heard of it. We had just heard of the
We had never
national
heard
one.
of it. There was the national, the NDP, but
Which
now he
was
came
swallowed.
up with
The liberal.
LDP. Yes. Then, within a few months, remember he campaigned very vigorously for President Kibaki.
Yeah.
After the agreement, the 3 months, we shall reform the constitution and have a prime minister, have the deputies, have what have you. When it couldn't work, how many people thought Orange would become a political party?
Just by happenstance.
How many people knew there was ODM Kenya and the ODM somebody Mugambi? Which after they differed with the Kalonzo Musyoka and the Kalonzo Musyoka ran away with the ODM Kenya, we already saw another, the so-called ODM. So working with Raila has never been safe.
You must
So
have,
you need
must have a backup.
Yes.
So this is what you
And
think that the
again-
president is doing. He's basically, by bringing in Kalonzo and bringing in Gideon Moi and Isaac Ruto, he's creating a backup.
He's creating a backup to give him a basis to work for the remaining part of his term. So that, and I'm telling you this, Eric, I want to pray that we will all be here. Before 2022 August, you will still see even a bigger shakeup. Because now these guys who have come in, everyone will come with a condition. Anyone who is clever and wise will come and say, yes, I'm supporting you, I want this. And when you don't have enough, and somebody feels like he'll walk away.
So we'll still see more movement by 2022.
There'll be more movements and more coalitions. I'm telling you. Okay, I was talking to some was there in a tea cafe last evening, and I was telling them, if I were William Ruto now, even to make this politics look even better, I would have resigned. So that now ni hapa kwa hapa, tupatane moja kwa moja.
Then you lose your influence.
Because
You lose the clout.
No, let me. Do you know what, Eric? You lose the crowd, but now look for the sympathy vote. Mnaona nimefukuzwa. Nilitengeneza hii kitu, tulijenga pamoja.
Wilberforce, remember that when
Yes.
Mudavadi was vice president, that was the
What
time he
happened?
actually lost his seat.
The problem with the Mudavadi, I don't. Okay, let me ask you this question, Muga.
Yes.
If Mudavadi was Raila,
Yes.
do you think he'd have lost his seat?
The answer is definitely no, he wouldn't have.
Thank you. So there's a difference between Mudavadi and every other politician in this country. I think Mudavadi
No,
is.
I was actually referring to the deputy president. If the deputy president
Okay.
leaves his current position,
Yes.
he will have lost a very pivotal position from which he can
I hear
actually
you.
function.
Yes. Yes, I hear you
There's
now.
so many things that
Then
he
he
has
has got
at his disposal at this moment that if
then
he were essentially out in the
yes.
cold, there would be then so many things that he would not be able to do as a result
No.
of that.
I hear you, and I remember now he's now constitutionally backed up. You know, the constitution does not actually give the president the mandate to
touch him,
to fire him. So he'll be there. He'll be misbehaving from inside if he has to misbehave. But basically, as I conclude, what we expect to see is a bigger shake-up, Eric. And as long as Raila Odinga is in Kenyan politics, who tells you before 2022, if he sees things are not working well, he'll not cross over and decide to work with
and shake
William
hands with
Ruto.
Ruto.
Hey.
Thank you, and he has to, and he can do it. And who told you again? We're talking about 3 political parties from the Rift Valley. We've got the CCM, we've got the KANU, and we've got the deputy president.
Yep.
Remember, all these guys have worked with Raila at one moment, and they were closer than Ruto than Raila is with Uhuru now, I can say.
Yep.
So Eric, all we are going to say, as I told you the other day, these are politicians. And a whole 3 years in Kenyan politics
Is a century.
is a century or even more.
Thank you, Wilberforce. Have a good day in
Have a
Nyamira.
good day, man.
Thank you for your contribution. It's 7:30. Let's take a look at the traffic, and then we come back to your calls. What do you think is happening? What do you make of all these movements that we're seeing politically? We've had Wilberforce's interpretation. Quite interesting, we must say. Good morning.
Road is looking really good today, guys. We don't have so much of an issue. The service lanes, the main highway, coming off of Kiambu Road, joining at Muthaiga Corner, everything looks really good. Post a child for traffic this morning, or have I spoken too soon? Let's wait and see what happens in a short while. But for now, it looks really good. Getting into the CBD is what is causing the heavy traffic today that you're experiencing. There's an accident that is still yet to be cleared out right at the roundabout that converges most of the major roads today into the city centre. It'll take a while to get that cleared up, and in the meantime, you're either going to have to use an alternate route to get into the CBD or sit through it and be extremely patient. It'll be interesting to know which one you do choose. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see so that we don't get stuck.
Conversation. In the room, we have CT Muga Nduoko, and I'm Eric Latif. We are looking at the politics and how the political landscape is basically unfolding. Yesterday, we saw the signing of a cooperation agreement between Jubilee and Wiper Democratic Movement Party on the one hand, and then Chama Cha Mapinduzi on the other. And we also know that there was a coalition.
Not Chama Cha Mapinduzi, my
Chama
brother.
Cha... Oh, Mashinani.
Nani.
Oh,
Chama
I
Cha
beg your pardon.
Mapinduzi is the CCM party in Tanzania.
Yeah.
But for all I know, you may be speaking prophetically.
Oh,
Carry on.
it could be the CCM Chama Cha Mashinani.
Yes.
And then we of course know that Jubilee has signed a post-election coalition with KANU. We know that there's a handshake agreement with the leader of ODM. And also we know that within Jubilee, there is some friction between the president and his deputy. Initially, these two were TNA and URP, and then they folded their parties plus others, and they became Jubilee. Now they're all Jubilee, and they're in disagreement. What is happening? Would like you to call in 0719-012-600. I see Robert and Kariuki in Nakuru and Kericho. Robert in Kericho and Kariuki in Nakuru, you were calling. Please call back. Now we're out of traffic. We can pick your calls and hear what you have to say. 0719-012-600. What is it that's happening? You know what Wilberforce said basically on what Ndu was saying about the president just trying to create a buffer. It's not a sufficient buffer from where I sit.
I actually agree with you. You see, but you do need an option. It may not be the strongest of buffers. if we were to believe what we read, the issue of signing a coalition or being into a coalition is something that ODM were not keen on.
I kindly request you to pause. We just hear from Robert in Kericho because it's called back, and then we come back to this point. Robert, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Now, I was to contribute to that debate, and what you're witnessing right now in Kenyan politics is not something new. And we know very well that the president has made it very clear that he wants to do some kind of changes in his government. So here in Rift Valley, basically, we know that this is the bedrock of the deputy president. But, okay, the people will decide. But generally, we know very well that there is going to be a coalition which is geared up towards the 2022 general election. So it is not something new. And we are in full support of the president. But it needs to also bring all people together. It needs to not be seen to appear to suggest that he's kicking out the deputy president. I think these people have come from far, and we hope to see more changes. But ultimately, as we enter the 2022 general elections, there is going to be more and more coalitions that are going to come out.
Robert, can I ask you, do you see this movement of bringing in Isaac Ruto from one side and Gideon Moi of Kanu from the other side, do you see this weakening what you are calling William Ruto's turf or base in the Rift Valley, in the Northern Rift?
William Ruto's base in Rift Valley is intact, my friend. Let me tell you, don't hear from people who are just moving around there telling the president that they can actually be able to shake up the deputy president. The deputy president has strength, he is very strong in Rift Valley. What he needs to do now is to extend his tentacles to other parts of the country and be able to galvanize his support for the 2020 general election.
So you don't think his support in Bomet, for example, will win. Remember, Isaac Ruto is from Bomet. The Secretary General of Kanu is from Bomet.
Yes. It's from Bomet, correct.
The chairman of Kanu is from Baringo. And in Baringo, we have seen, and in the neighboring county, we've seen the number of MPs that Kanu has from just that region, Baringo and West Pokot.
You remember the tsunami that that carried away many politicians in Rift Valley when they were actually defecting, they were defying the Ruto's call to join Jubilee Party in the run-up to the 2017 general election. Actually, ultimately, the Bomet governor actually lost his seat. And that clearly tells you that, indeed, the deputy president has full support. And people are watching, people are seeing the movements that are going on. And actually, the deputy president is going to win the sympathy vote. Actually, people are feeling that, in fact, all these things that are happening in government are geared towards humiliating the deputy president. And in that context, the deputy president is winning support across the entire Rift Valley region. And let me tell you that politics is a game of numbers. Politics changes every other day, and we expect more to come. I'm not saying that I'm not a sycophant, but the real politics that are going on, we must stick to facts. That Bomet governor is not bringing anything at all to the president, the president's side.
Robert,
even the Gideon Moi thing, he will not bring anything because actually the people, they
stand behind the deputy president. Robert, thank you very much. Let me pick this one who's Karaoke in Nakuru. Karaoke, good morning.
Good morning to you guys. How are you?
We are fine, thank you, Karaoke.
I want to comment on this issue.
Go ahead.
I will start with saying God has the final say. All these hurabans and whatever is going on in the government, God has the final say. I will take you back to 1976. When there was these guys from Kikuyu community. Because it seems as if there is this issue of wherever the deputy president happens to be challenging, deputizing a Kikuyu president. Anytime, according to the history, the president is just about to retire. Because if you remember 1976, when the president was seen as if he is going to leave the world anytime soon, they decided to go through the country to change the constitution to an extent whereby the deputy president is not going to take over when the president dies. Remember that? But those arrangements were brought to an end when, without their knowledge, the president disappeared. In fact, he passed on. Now, this kind of a scenario, I've mentioned it just to tell you that the same scenario happened in 1976. Nobody, if you remember the Duke Koinange and the other Kihika Simani and the other guy.
Kariuki, I'm sorry to cut you short. I think there's something not very clear with your line. Let's try and get you back on a clearer line, and then we continue this conversation and hear what you're saying. John Joroge in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
How are you, wise men and ladies?
We are very well, wise man.
No, I come from a different school of thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason why the deputy president went and did a doctorate in political science got everything to do with him wanting to be the president.
Mm-hmm.
And he came with an...
He did one in political science?
Yeah, he's a political scientist now.
Way. Are you sure?
No. Okay, maybe I cannot be sure, but him doing whatever he did to become a doctor, he has a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the plan is this. He has to be the one to take over from the president. And the way the government is right now, Uhuru can't come and tell us now we have to give the deputy president because already we have some shortcomings, or maybe we have some shortcomings with the government as it is. The best way to kind of bring the deputy president to be the president is to bring Raila in.
Mm-hmm.
When he brings Raila in now, he makes him a slave now. They are co-partners in the government.
Yep.
And they isolate, they create a perception as if they are isolating the deputy president.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time the election comes, people will think that Ruto now was never in the government. So if we have issues with the government as it was, Ruto was not in it at that time. So it will be easier to sell him. So I think whatever is happening right now is a decoy because everybody Uhuru is surrounding himself in is weak, apart from Raila Odinga.
Okay.
And the position Raila has now is more powerful because I don't think there's anything Uhuru can do without consulting Raila.
So Raila is actually gaining more power here.
Yes, but eventually he'll be... They want to finish him because by the time we come to the election, he'll say he was part and parcel of the government. And now the Ruto will have the sympathy vote because he was the isolated man.
Okay.
If we go back into history a little bit, if you remember, during the Moi era, would you not say then that parts of the country, central and part of the country where Raila came from, were not pro the government whatsoever? And if I'm to go by your thinking, when Raila decided to disband his party and joined KANU, that should have finished him politically.
Now, people have seen Raila for who he is right now.
Which is?
He's not as powerful as he was then. And here we have a man who is in the government now, and a man who stood by him, who is Miguna, who have been exiled. So I have a feeling by the time we come to 2022, Miguna will come back to Kenya to try and finish up Raila. He'll come back.
Wow. Okay.
And by that time, when Raila now tried to be the tinga and try to implode the Jubilee, he won't have that clout anymore.
Okay. Thank you, John. Yes. Kariuki is back from Nakuru. Kariuki, good morning.
Good morning to you.
It's a bit better.
I was saying, this is what I was saying. In 1976, if you can recall, there was this kind of an issue that has arisen today. Because if you can remember, by then, Kinambio Koinange and the other powerful guys, Kihika Kimani and Joroge Mungai, those were Kenyatta's right-hand man. And now that they think that the president is just about to pass on to the rest of the world, they decided to go around the country so that they can change the constitution. Remember that?
Yes, I
2
remember
years down-
vividly, yes.
Yeah, 2 years down the line, if you can recall, something happened which was against their expectations. If you can recall, Mzee died in Mombasa. By then, D. Kainange, who was a very powerful minister in the Kenyatta's government, that particular day when they were in Mombasa, the gentleman left Nairobi. And remember, he was the key man, especially the change of the constitution so that the late president cannot take over. Right now. But unfortunately, because he was the key, he left Mombasa and he left Mzee. Mzee died, but fortunately, there was the PC there, Mahe, who telephoned him and told him what he has to do. Remember that? Unfortunately, the plan of this guy, Koinange and the others, came to an end because the direction, if you can recall, let me give you a little history backward here in Nakuru.
I'm waiting to hear.
You know-
I'm waiting to hear how this connects to the present, Kariuki.
That's the reason why I'm telling you. Unfortunately, Mzee died in 2008. There was no way they can change the constitution when Mzee is dead. So, constitutionally, the vice president has to take over. Isn't it? Remember that. So, the reason why I'm saying this is an issue wherever a Kikuyu is the president deputized by a Kalenjin. There is always this kind of a school battle. No, he's not supposed to succeed our president. See what. Remember today, and I've been telling you, today, the current president, President Uhuru Kenyatta, if you talk, by then we never voted the way we are voting today. Today, the president, despite the fact that we voted for him, and I've been telling you, and come 2022, God willing, you shall bear me witness that this gentleman has no vote. I'm telling you, go across Central Province and here in Nakuru. Let me tell you that. I'm telling you, this guy will not have anything. Now, Raila can boast of his followers. I know that they are there. They still follow where he'll go. Even he lives Uhuru today. I'm sure the Luo Nyanza will follow Raila Odinga. And like any other person, even Karonzo is not even sure whether his men will follow his followers. But the only person who has no vote, and I would like you guys to come to the ground so that maybe you
So
can
does
justify.
William Ruto have the support of does William Ruto have the support, a strong support of the North Rift or the Rift Valley in general?
Not the Rift, you mean not the Rift Valley as a whole.
Yeah, Rift Valley as a whole.
The only maybe vote you could have expected not to be his is that of Kikuyu. But remember, today, every Kikuyu here, every person, 5 of every person they are talking about this.
To a
They are all
man.
behind this man.
So all the
They are behind this
Kikuyus, in Rift
Go-
Valley, what you're saying, Kariuki, is all the Kikuyus in
Go-
Rift Valley.
Not all, but you definitely may have 2 or 3 people saying no, you know, that is the issue. Even in Central Provinces, even that other time when we went to election, some were saying no, we are not going to vote for whom.
Okay, a majority.
Raila Odinga.
A majority
That's what it is.
are
The
for Ruto.
majority of Kikuyu, Central Province, let's talk of Central Province, are all behind. You have kinsmen there, and we have been asking, what are you thinking? Where are you going? They have been telling us.
Okay.
And that is the preaching we have as Kikuyu. This is our man to the end.
Sawa.
Okay.
We hear you, Kariuki,
Thank you.
and like you've said, 2022 will bear you witness. We will be here. We will listen and hear what you'll be saying, and then we'll see what
Thank
the
you.
ground says. Good morning. Thank you very much for calling
Thank
in.
you.
0719-012-600. Before we went to the calls, CT, you were making a point on this kind of movements and what do you expect to see. If you look at the North Rift and you look at the point of even bringing in the Chama cha Mashinani,
Mashinani.
just goes, it flows. Chama cha Mashinani, Isaac Ruto, Bomet, KANU Secretary General Nick Salat, Bomet. We have seen even before when you had by-elections, KANU trying to really campaign strongly, and it took the deputy president himself to go and campaign for a by-election in Bomet. I mean, that
Kericho.
in Kericho, right? Around Kericho. And so around that area, maybe Ruto does not have 100% support. Of course, Baringo and West Pokot, where you've seen a number of KANU MPs, it shows that KANU has some good foothold in those areas.
You know, this concept and this idea of political support, what you need to ask yourself is, what is it? What does it constitute? Is it that the vast majority of the voting population there who are young, because the vast majority of the voting population in this country are young, is it that they support him? Or is it that, for instance, if you look again at how it is people determine political positions, there are parts of this country where it is the elders who more or less give you the direction you should follow. And if the elders give their blessing, that is where people tend to move to. And then there are people who are astute enough to understand that even whether they are elders or not, that political positions are taken with this in mind, where you perceive political power to be heading towards. So you support that wing. Now, if you ask yourself a very, very simple question, the one person who seems to defy some of these things that I'm calling logical, the one person is Raila Odinga. His support base doesn't really care.
No, they just go with him wherever he goes.
Yes, they go with him.
Yes.
And there's the misconception that the support is only in Luo Nyanza. It is not true. It is not true. If you look at the wings that ODM has spread throughout the country, let's take the coast, for instance. Almost the entire coast region is pro-ODM. If you look at Western, there are many people there who are pro-ODM. So if you are asking the question, if it appears that Raila Odinga has a very, very good chance of becoming president if he so chooses to stand, you will be amazed at how many people from various parts of the country will suddenly align themselves in the direction. If it appears like Kalonzo Musyoka might be president, you will be surprised at how many people will suddenly shift and align themselves.
Yeah.
If Isaac Ruto appears like he has the chance of being the president, again, you'll see the alliances and movements of people politically.
Because it's not necessarily the present situation that gets people to rally around an idea. It is the promise of the future and what they could possibly benefit from that would get them to throw their support behind a certain thing. It's the promise or the possibility that you would be in a position that would then influence the existence of all of these individuals who would essentially rally up. It's the promise of that, or the hope of that idea, that this person then could be in a position that could help us.
You see, that's where Raila has an advantage because he has painted this picture of being the poster person for the individual who fights for the rights of the underdog. Now, moving him from that position will take some doing. And moving the idea from people's minds will also take some doing. Because remember, for the longest time, when someone has been in the opposition for as long as he has, and someone who has spoken about many, many things that ordinarily other people are afraid to speak of, people get to feel that this person is always speaking out in a favor. Remember, immediately after the handshake, there was a big hue and cry. Now, where's Raila? If Raila was here, he would have spoken about this. Why? It's because he is associated with always speaking about things that people may feel the government is doing but doesn't necessarily benefit them. Now, it takes a bit of time to acquire that reputation. It also takes a bit of time for people to change their mind and the perspective they have of that particular individual. Now, all these other people we're talking about have not acquired that reputation.
Yet.
No, they haven't. They haven't. They're sort of, I guess also they are victims of time and space. So they haven't had time to get detained. They also haven't time to get jailed. They haven't had time to get tear gassed. They haven't had the space and time, or they have never chosen to be in that space where they could represent or present the image that Raila has presented over time.
Over time.
Yes.
Well, we're taking your calls this morning, 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Good morning. This is Spice FM.
Okay. My contribution to this...
Yes. What's your name, sir?
It's Moses.
All right, Moses.
From Nakuru.
Yes. Moses, what's your contribution to this?
Okay, so at the moment, I'm expecting that Ruto is a force in Kenya at the moment. However, with Kenya being a tribalistic country, the ball lies on the court of Ruto. So, in the highlight that Ruto is going to choose a Kikuyu as a running mate, the balls are okay. People are going to have a perception that every time that there's going to be a voting, that Kenya is going to only have a Kikuyu and a Kalenjin as a president. And now there's going to be a very big shake-up in the government. Okay. In the highlight that he doesn't choose a Kikuyu as a running mate, I'm very sure that Kikuyus are not going to be on the side of Ruto. That's one thing I'm sure of. Yeah. So, at the moment, the ball just lies on who Ruto is going to choose as a running mate. That's my point.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day, Nakuru.
Okay, thank you.
What will Ruto do?
Well, someone suggested that he should resign. That's the last thing he should do. When you're in the sort of position that he's in, you fight back.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because if you don't fight back, you'll be run over.
Using the machinery that's available to you in terms of power.
Don't just sit there and say, I'm the deputy president anyway.
No. You have to find subtle ways of fight. You have to fight back. The way our political scene has been, when you fight back, people pause and say, should we negotiate with this person? If you're quiet, as I said, they will roll over you.
It's interesting because even now that being quiet in itself sends out a message that you've then taken a position of weakness, and so then gives them the opportunity to then do that, to exert some kind of, whether it be pressure or kind of influence over you. Do
you lose support? Do your supporters see that you now become too weak?
Well, definitely. I mean, if somebody had seen some strength in you, this is the reason why they followed you in the first place. And if they see then you've taken on a position then that would, for some reason, induce weakness, then they're likely to their support would likely to be reduced. At the same time, though, I think it would be akin to suicide for him to resign.
Politically, it would be.
I
mean, Eric, think for a second. Why do you think all these people who have political aspirations or are politicians or are in positions, elective politics, or have been elected, why do you think they're always speaking?
Even if sometimes whatever comes out of their mouth is absolute hogwash, but at some point they have to keep...
Yes, and I have to be seen to be supporting a certain position or my person or defending them or something.
Because guess what happens? Even if you open your mouth and say something after having been on a hiatus for some time, what happens? That everybody starts talking about you. Everybody starts analyzing what it is that you've said. And what happens? You're lingering then in the imaginations and words of people. And then you suddenly become relevant.
And in this era of tweeting and tweets,
just say something. It doesn't even matter what it is.
You've got to be seen and be heard.
It doesn't even matter what it is.
You can't tweet nothing. So the moment someone says something, tweet. The realm of the kingdom of tweet. Okay? So the truth is, politicians must be understood for who they are. There are people who've commented and said, when you talk to this person, it sounds very reasonable, but when he's doing his politics, it sounds... No, please understand. When a politician speaks, you must ask yourself who his audience is at the time he is speaking. Usually, it's the audience who elected him. And they expect him to have a certain position and to portray a certain image. So he is going to do it. The rest of you don't really count in this. No, you don't really count.
You're not regarded.
You're secondary audience.
No.
Not even regarded.
You're not really important to this particular person. So when he speaks, it's not you he's speaking to. Please understand.
Speaking to his people.
There's a message that's being sent.
Okay. Coming to the top of the hour, this conversation continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. CT Muga, what's today's proverb from Sierra Leone?
100 aunties are not the same as one mother.
100 aunties, one mother, not the same.
Throw in another zero and make it 1,000.
Is equals cancel, mother.
Yes.
100 aunties equals cancel, one mother.
Yes.
Sum complete. Circle that, 10 marks. Wow. Well done. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
lorry is bringing problems, though. This one that flipped right at the roundabout. It's bringing major problems now because people who are trying to get in at that point cannot, and it's from all over the city. So a dash of patience is required, or find an alternate route for now, because police are on the scene. We know this. They've tried to create an alternate lane for you to use, but then that means that everybody else who was coming off of that area now is also stuck. So getting into the CBD today is not a dream. A little bit of a nightmare is what we are seeing. So that's going to change in a short while, and we'll give you information concerning that. Other parts, though, seem to be flowing very well. Thika Road, no problems whatsoever. She's in good form today. Spice of MKE on Twitter, that's how you can reach us. Tell us what you see if you get stuck anywhere, and we can help in terms of giving out information.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times.
Thank you very much for choosing to wake up to Spice FM and listening to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7, wherever you are in the world, New Zealand, United States, in the South Pole, the North Pole, Greenland, Iceland, www.spicefm.co.ke, and SpiceFMKE on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram as well. And you can join the conversation 0719-012-600. Right, let's now talk about putting food on our table. Politicians are not doing that clearly, so let's just do it for ourselves. We've talked about food security for a while, and every time we talk about X number of people who are facing starvation in the country because of one reason or the other, mostly famine because of rain and erratic rainfall patterns. We are talking about people who have produced, and there's a glut in production, but there's no uptick by the market. And these are various other food commodities. And then we talk about maize, and maize has to end up with the story of importation of X number of tons of maize from cheaper countries. Yellow maize, white maize from Mexico, it comes in here, and then there's a price of unga going up, price of unga coming down. We start bringing in the issue of the Ministry of Agriculture, the National Cereals and Produce Board, how much maize are you holding? Then there's the other one, the
Aflatoxin.
What
is actually
issues.
Available is rotting.
Contaminated, right? We talk about the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund and what it's supposed to do, what it's supposed to be doing in the country. So when you talk about all these things, we now saw the other day that the government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, decided to come up with some reforms, proposed reforms, restructuring of the National Food Reserve and the Food Storage Management. And it was launched by the CS for Agriculture, CS Munya. He said, a number of things we have seen happening in this country. Number one, the government participates in this whole food business through NCPB and the Strategic Food Reserve. We buy maize from farmers, and then at some point we offload this maize by selling it to the market. And then whenever people are hungry, we are looking at the government and asking, so you give us the maize that you're holding. And then the millers are asking, so what is it? Where are we going to get maize? Allow us to import maize cheaply. This whole game is going to come to an end very soon. And he says, by later this year, September, October this year, we're going to have a change of strategy. The government is no longer going to be participating in this trade. What does that mean? What does that mean to our food security? What does that mean to how we're trying to get our things done, by our own experts. Let's speak to one person who was involved in this whole negotiation, or not negotiation, but basically coming up with a new strategy. He is a professor at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. He is also the chairman of the Joint Technical Committee of National Government and Public Universities on Food and Nutrition Security. Those are the people who are basically looking at, all right, we need to talk about food security. What do we need to do? Government went to academia and went and said, the joint technical universities, public universities, come together. Let's also bring in together experts from government, work together and advise us what we need to do going forward. His name is Professor Wangai Ndirango, and he joins us now on the line to move us from the point of lack of clarity to some sense of semblance of clarity. Professor, good morning.
Good morning, and how are you today?
We're very well, thank you. Thank you very much
morning.
for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much for having me.
Long title that you have here, Chairman, Joint Public Universities and National Government Committee on Food and Nutrition Security. We'll come into that and you'll explain to us what exactly you are doing. Let's start from the basics, all right? In this country, and you'll forgive me when I use perceptions, because you now will give us the reality. In perception that we have is when it comes to food security and talking about the staple food in the country, we think maize. When you talk about whether Kenya has enough food in our storage, we think maize. So maize has primarily dominated the conversation about food security. And when we talk about that, then we have other players who come in. We have the producers. We've got other traders. We've got the National Cereals and Produce Board. We have the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund. We have got millers. Then we have the consumer. Just take us through briefly, what exactly do all these players do in this value chain?
Thank you very much. And I think this is very nice to have this discussion because I think it's important for the country. First, because it is in our stated objective by the president that by the year 2022, we want to have a country that is food secure and also nutrition-wise also secure. And so then we need to ask, what does that really mean for us? Now, and so when we think of that and we start thinking about the value chain, what happens then from the point when we produce to the point when we harvest, to the point that we store that food for later use, how we distribute it, and who also distributes, and finally, the utilization. In that respect then, whenever we talk about the food and security, we need to think about four important areas. One of them is the availability of food. The second is the stability of that stock throughout the year or the period of use. The third one is the access, because we've had in this country times when people are saying we have a lot of milk in one area and that in another area there is scarcity. So how do people access it? Do they have the fund, the money to buy it? It may be available but not be for their use. And finally, is the utilization or how the food is used. Because it's also possible that we have a variety of food. For example, there are parts of this country where people would not take fish, for example, or it's not their preferred. It could be available, but it's not being used. The other areas where coconut, for example, it could be available, but it's not the preference of the people. So how is food then utilized? So that whole ecosystem and how it interacts is important for food and security. And that's really how this whole discussion maybe is revolving.
Then what's the role of NCPB in this discussion and the Strategic Food Reserves Fund?
Right. We have to step back and look back to the 70s when NCPB was formed. And at that time, government was in a lot of areas. I would say government was doing business, so to speak. And you look in the hotel industry, you look in the banking industry. We had KCB, National Bank, being very big. We had government running enterprises. So when you look at the act that formed NCPB, it gives NCPB the mandate also to trade in food, so over and above the regulation part, it was the NCPB was also doing the trading part. Now, fast forward, and from 1980s, we see, and much more in the 90s, we see the growth of private enterprises. So then you have a scenario where the government is competing in the same space with the private sector it is meant to regulate. Now, that it's like being in a football match, and where you are the player, you are the referee, and and you also set the rules. Then that doesn't work so well. So because of that scenario, we started noticing that from the 1980s onwards, the food situation started fluctuating. And many people will remember 1980, for instance, when we had the first importation of the yellow maize, the very major, famine that we had in 1984. And that now has become almost like an annual event. So starting from 1990s, then the government started saying, look, we need to have a strategic reserve that cushions us against a spike. And because then NCPB was the same entity that was storing and also doing commercial trading and also doing the strategic, there was need then to set aside a fund. And so about 5 years ago, the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund was formed out of the Public Finance Management Act to be able to set aside a fund that is dedicated to addressing the strategic food needs of the country. And so that's how the two come. Now, at this point, then you're asking ourselves, so after 4 years, what are we learning and what is that we need to do differently?
Has it worked?
Even after that, unfortunately, I would say not. And I would say for a fact, one, when you look at all the maize being produced in the country, SFRTF would probably be taking up about 2 to 4 million bags of maize in any given year. Our production is somewhere in the range of about 38 million bags. So in essence, we are saying that the food that is actually going through NCPB and or being handled by SFRTF is probably in the range of between 2 to 10% at the very highest.
So where does the rest?
That's a very important question. Who is then handling the rest? And so these reforms that the minister has initiated is addressed to asking that we cannot spend all our time asking about 5% of maize alone, 5% of maize production, and without thinking about who are the players. And we talked about the value chain actors. Number two is that is to come and say that maize is just one of the food items being produced in this country, and which need the support of government to grow. So when then we are all the time, every year in out, thinking about maize and fertilizer for maize, then I think we certainly will be losing the script. And that's what the reform is about, saying how can we widen the scope so that to think that every one county in this country has a potential for a certain food item. Maybe one, maybe two, maybe three. And it needs to be focused so that we enhance that potential.
I have a couple of questions here, if you allow me to interrupt. Number one, at what point did maize then start dominating this whole food security conversation? Like it became the only thing we think about when you talk about food. And secondly, in your own findings, and you're working as a technical committee, who is this that's handling the other 80% of the grain that's produced in the country? If NCPB is only handling actually less than about 5 to 10%, who's handling the other 90%?
Let me start with the first question about how did maize then end up dominating the food security discourse. One is, I think, let's also admit it, that in Kenya, maize is by way the staple food. And not only in Kenya, in fact, we also see that in a country like Zambia, in a country like Malawi, there are several countries in the region that where maize is the staple food. But let's also take to account that the pattern is changing. I mean, step back 20 years ago, the consumption of wheat was not as it is today. You can see it off the shelf. Things like pizza, bread, cake, all those kind of things, spaghettis and all that. You see that the wheat consumption now becoming a very also important area, especially in the urban areas. The roots and the tubers, the potato, the cheese, and all those kind of things that we are taking also becomes a very, very important. Vegetable, likewise, is becoming a very important food item. So maybe maize then was an important the premier food item 30 years ago, but we have not updated our situation to see is it still the most important food item. Number two, does it provide us with the nutrition, the calorific needs, the nutrition needs for a Kenyan person, a Kenyan child to grow today? And the answer is absolutely no. So we need to refocus our attention and update it to the current scenario.
It seems like there's an entire process towards getting food secure for any country. Until the point then now when you're dealing with things like surpluses. I mean, this is your territory, so you know it. But just like you're saying, that something needs to be done, because we're seeing this push and pull. We're seeing focus on one crop. We're seeing infighting. What would be the first step that needs to take to break away from this now and then say, okay, now here we are and this is what we actually need to do? Because there just seems to be a whole roundabout. Even narrating what has been happening in the last couple of months is exhausting at best. What needs to happen? What is the first thing that then needs to be happening for then moving forward? Because if we're talking about food security by a certain year, it just looks like a pipe dream at this point.
That's right. And in addressing that question, I want to address the first one that was asked to know, basically what needs to be done. One, the government has initiated, and I think we've completed a process of suitability mapping in each and every county. And I'll give an example. If you look at Makueni County, if you judge Makueni County by the way it produces maize, you are going to miss it.
Yeah.
But when you go to Green Grams, it's very good. It's very good. If you go to Kwale and Cashew Nut, you find it is very good. If you go to northeastern Kenya, if you judge it by its suitability for livestock production and its contribution to the economy, then you find that it is very suitable. But if you judge the county of Marsabit by the way it produces maize or beans, then you will say it is not suitable. And so we have this narrative that has gone on for a long time of what we call high potential and low potential areas. And that has influenced even the way we allocate resources. So we are saying that every part of this country has a potential. And so the first thing that has happened is to map the suitability. The second thing is then to ask, and that's happening, is then to say, what are the support infrastructure that the government need to provide together with the county government so that these enterprises then thrive. And that is what is going on now. So, and then that addresses the question of first of all, then saying, mapping who are the actors. So the other 90% that is not going to NCTB, in fact 95%. So where is it going? And so when we are at that, then we realize that the private sector in Kenya has grown tremendously. Case in point, on average, the nearest distance of a farmer in the main growing areas to an NCTB store is 25 kilometers. But a study done in 2014 showed that the nearest, distance, or the distance to the nearest agro dealer is about 4 kilometers. That was 2014. So I'm sure 6 years later, probably is even much nearer. The question then is to ask, why should then government be competing for business with an agro dealer or trying to provide a parallel infrastructure to the agro dealer who are doing a very nice job? So the thinking right now is that let the private sector, it has proven in many other areas, let us have the private sector play, and the government provides the services. So NCTB then is in the process of restructuring so that it provides a hub model. And for those who are familiar with a model like KTDA, KTDA is up there, and for example, it does bulk sourcing of fertilizer, at commercial rates. And then through the factories, it distributes that, and all the way down to the tea buying center. Now, that means that farmer does not need to go too far away from where they live to source these inputs. And also at that point, they also get supported with extension service. The person who is dispensing the farm input, be it a pesticide, be it seeds, be it fertilizer, is also able to provide that farmer with, or producer actually, because not just farmer, it's the whole production, including livestock and fish and fisheries and everything else. They're able to provide that person necessary advice of what works for them. On the river side, whatever then, and again I use the KTDA model, that once the tea farmer has plucked the tea leaves, they are able to take to the nearest collection center, and the burden of marketing and taking it all the way that the logistics that involves with the market, the output market, is no longer on the farmer but on another. So that's the kind of structure we are trying to develop. So work together with private sector is already very vibrant in Kenya, and it's a chance in the process also create businesses for people who are innovative.
But an issue as serious as food security, I mean, this is just like it's like national security, right? If we say that we are now just pulling our hands away and saying we just as government are going just to be regulating and providing those very fanciful words, a conducive working environment for the private sector to thrive in this sector, we are basically letting hawks come and take charge of food security. What protects the producers and the consumers from these sharks and hawks who would come and maybe even manipulate the entire ecosystem? And basically just we look the same KTDA model that you're giving on paper, the KTDA model, very well, very good, but look at the kind of issues that we're having right now with the tea sector. The president had to come in himself and try to intervene. The agriculture ministry is trying to intervene to ensure that the KTDA model goes back to what it was supposed to be, or even change it. Because cartel.
That's right. And I think, let me say this first. The government is not doing hands-off. What the government is doing is saying the government is not in direct business. We still have the National Food Reserve that is being entrenched in NCPB. And the purpose of this function is to see that we are continuously studying and monitoring the market. And the government will still intervene on two important things. Let me bring now to the practical realities. In just about 3 months from now, in October, November, you most likely you will hear, and this is an annual issue, where the farmers are saying we have too much food, the prices are very low. We need money for the farmer to dispose that to the market at very low prices because they have immediate cash needs. On the other hand, by the July of every year, starting from around April, the millers now start complaining and say the price of maize is too high, let's be allowed to report. And of course, then at the time also the consumer then starts complaining. So let's think about the food ecosystem. We have three group of people that we want to focus on. The first one is the producer. The producer must get the right price and the benefit for his work. The second person is a trader who must be able to do a genuine business and make also a profit by helping to distribute food across the country. And the third person is a consumer, that you must be able to predict that the food range is between X and Y. So then what the NFR will be doing and what it needs to do from now going forward is that whenever we have excess production, because we are monitoring this on a daily basis there's a lot of technology that gives us enough data to know, then it's able to offtake through the newly established, the where receipt housing system, and therefore keep that food away and therefore avoid the glut in the market. For maize, it will be the same for milk, it will be the same for wheat, it will be the same for any other commodity that has a fluctuating nature.
Professor, if I may ask,
on the other hand,
these things that you say sound good and they're very encouraging, but how long will it take before they become a reality that the common man in this country can benefit from them?
In fact, in the next 3 months, by October this year, we shall actually be having the first of the warehouse receipts, warehouses licensed or certified ware receipt houses. And let me add just one thing that is very important. Going forward, and in fact, even starting from the end of this year, starting with the NCPB, KNTC, and probably also another private sector warehouses, we want to have a situation where actually the farmer is contracted to produce well ahead of the harvest. So he knows very well, where am I going to take my produce? Because there is heavy competition, and everybody then not only do support the farmer to produce, but you also agree with them that this produce is actually for me, and this is the price I'm going to offer you for it. And in a commercial environment, we think that is good. So by the end of this year, I think we have the government is very clear that by October, this system must be working, and by December, it should be fully operational. So it's not a long-away dream. It's something that needs to happen very, very quickly before the next harvest season.
What commodities are going to start benefiting from this?
I think obviously the first one. I think there are 6 items that are in the purview right now. One of them is maize. The second one is rice. The third one is meat. Then there is fish. Then there is beans. Did we have all of them? So there is maize. There is rice,
fish,
there is meat, fish,
beans,
dried beans, and powdered milk.
Okay.
Yes.
I know it could be that asking a question that may come out of, but is there a total comprehension by all sectors involved what it really then does mean to be food secure, and are we able to achieve that in the time frame that was initially given, or is it something that continues to be a work in progress?
As you know, the minister announced these changes just about a month ago, and I can tell you between then and now, a lot of work has happened. During the entire of this month, we have been in touch with virtually every other actor, and that is continuing up to the end of June, to get people to understand what we are. And I'll say it's a very simple thing. You see, every time we talk about food, we talk about problems. And we know the challenges too well. We can talk about it until, as they say, until the dusk.
Yep.
But I think now we are saying we have enough capacity, there is will, and clear comprehension in government that these need to change. And so we are translating and saying, let's not talk about our child, what are the opportunities? And so one of the opportunities is to appreciate that we have a lot of infrastructure. NCPB has a capacity to store 18 million metric tons of food. That's a lot of food, if you think about it. That out of the production, for example, of maize, of 38 million bags, we can store 21 million bags. There is that available in NCPB.
Can I stop you before you go to the next one and just ask a question there as you now continue? Is that there's a capacity to store. Does the country have a capacity to produce that amount as it is now?
Yes, I did mention that already. We actually were producing annually about 38 million bags of maize alone. And we have a capacity of 21 million bags of maize in NCPD. There are, of course, the other people like NTC with a smaller capacity. So, yes, we are producing. And I think you put a very important question before I let you.
Yeah, but in this case, I'm looking at what is being produced year on year. Also, it's being consumed. But if you're looking at what can be stored as a reserve, looking at taking that away then from what is being consumed regularly, is it possible that we do that? Produce so much that it's being consumed by the country, you have surplus that then is reserved in cases of emergency. Can that happen concurrently?
Oh, yes. And in fact, I just wanted to say that, you see, one of the other challenges that we have is out of the maize or the food that we are producing, and let me use maize as an example, we are losing between 15 to 20% because of bad storage. Now, and if you think of 40 million bags approximately, and you think about 20%, or even think about even 10%, I mean, they're talking about 4 million bags. Now, this is about the same amount of food that we find ourselves importing. So that just by improving storage, we then actually reduce the losses to something below 5%. And why is this part of the problem? It's because many producers don't have good storage to keep their agricultural produce. So by improving and restructuring the storage, we have actually gone a long way in ensuring that the losses and also the benefit to the producer is enhanced. Now, and by the way, that's only in one commodity. I mean, you have had issues about people talking about milk. You had people talking about tomatoes, potatoes, and cabbage, and fish, and everything else. So you can imagine that storage has a potential to resolve a lot of issues. And we are saying, look, the work of the farmer is to produce. They are not experts in, or they are not experts in anything, and we don't want to burden them with storage issues. Let them do their work of producing. Then after that, let other actors then pick up that and add value, and the farmer sits back and they wait for their pay that remunerates. Number two, how then do we intervene? An occasional example is that when you look at wheat, out of every 5 bags of wheat we consume, or 5 kilos of wheat, 4 are imported. And we ask ourselves, why should that continue? So how does then the government intervene by way of incentives? And so you remember, when under this COVID situation, the president announced that he was reducing about 8 billion shillings under the e-voucher system to support farmers, so that and production and really just to revamp or to cushion farmers during this period. Because then there are cases where, for example, the inputs are too high, and you still need to cushion the farmer to support them to lower the cost of production. But what we are doing differently is that in the past we would have an agent, importing fertilizer and distributing it, and that gives room for the cartel to grow. So rather, what we're doing is that you say, look, farmer can make good decisions. You provide a voucher, you provide a support package, and send it through a digital means. It's an easy incentive. So it's a registered farmer, and you target them directly. Then they go on their own accord to an agro dealer of their choice, and they redeem that voucher. Therefore, you eliminate all this middle group that has been doing a lot of disservice to the country. So there is a lot of... So you can see that the whole reform is not really about institutions. It's about the whole ecosystem that is needed from right for production to stabilizing trade and to ensure that the consumers are protected from price hikes and that the food given to them is of sufficient quality and quantity for nutrition.
I have 2 questions to ask, Professor. One, the warehouse receipts are actually akin to a title deed that the farmer is given for the crop deposited in the warehouse.
Correct.
Now, is this something that banks can use in the same way they use a title deed to make the farmer perhaps, or cushion the farmer against, or just help the farmer in his production or in his farming processes? That's number one. Number two, alongside this question, we used to have an organization called the Kenya Farmers Association. It morphed into KGGCU, and then I think it died. The functions that you mentioned about managing inputs and so forth for farmers, these organizations, did they not in one way or the other actually try to perform this particular task that you are talking about?
Correct. Let me start with the first one, and I'm glad that you bring that discussion about the place of the warehousing receipt system. Now, and true enough that we talked about the storage. Now, we are asking ourselves, how do we guarantee the producer that the produce they put into the warehouse retains the same quality? You have had cases of people saying that government is of so much has gotten damaged. Now, so the first thing that is happening is that we are registering all the warehouses whether private or government, that are doing storage business and put them to the required standard. Number two, then that once a person deposits their produce there, they get a receipt, which is a tradable security. It's a tradable item. That means that you can use that. And already there is a conversation that with a bank like KCB. We hope in time we'll also bring others bank on board, where then they can accept that that receipt and advance the farmer some money against it, because they are sure that the product or the deposit is in good order and it will remain in that manner until the time when it is needed. So that has two things. First of all, it resolves the farmer's immediate need for cash, so that if I produce and is a glut, I am able to keep my produce for next 6 months until the price is right for me to dispose. But at the same time, I'm able to offset the immediate cash needs. The second thing is that these ware receipt houses will be tradable under the commodity exchange, which is currently being established under the Ministry of Trade. And what then this means is that if I want to trade my agricultural produce, I need not go to a physical market, because all I need to do is just like a stock exchange, and I will put it up there and say, look, I have maize in Voi, 800 bags. If you want it, this is my offer price. Someone else says I have another 200 in Kitale, and you take it from where it is. So it's a process of price discovery, and so you know. And in fact, going forward, because this is important, and why it is that the government will not directly buy, but if the National Food Reserve needs to take out excess, it will go to that open market and it will buy receipts, but not physical product. So it will buy receipts. So you can see the ware receipt housing is another avenue by which government is making sure that the trade in food is more open, is more friendly, it has less burden in terms of logistics.
Prof, let's take a short break, Prof. When we come out of this break, we'll continue with this, the receipt warehousing. First, you'll give us any examples of where it's working. And practically, basically, you're telling someone to go into the market and they're buying a receipt and they assume that they've bought food. You know, this is not something that's going to be, you'll be introducing something completely new into this market and ecosystem. So we'll look at the challenges and the opportunities of that as well. But just a short break, we take a look at the weather and traffic. Stay on the line. We are speaking with Professor Wangai Ndirango. He is a food and nutrition security expert. He is a professor at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and also a chairman of the Joint Public University and National Government Committee on Food and National Security. Weather, traffic. Good morning.
Sun's peeking out in Nairobi at 15. We'll see highs of 23 today, partly cloudy conditions. And then looking at other major towns in the country, in Nyeri, we'll see highs of 22. And Nakuru will experience rain later with highs of 22. Eldoret will follow in the same fashion. Kisumu, looking into Western Kenya, will be quite rainy this afternoon with highs of 26, as will be Kakamega. In Mombasa and other coastal towns, it's already raining this morning. We'll see highs of 28, and the rain will carry on through the day in Mombasa, as it will in Malindi. In East Africa, highs of 24 will be experienced in Kampala with rain in the afternoon and cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam with highs of 30. Johannesburg is seeing quite chilly conditions today, well into the South African winter, highs of 13 and lows of -1. And finally, for now in Lagos, light thunderstorms and rain throughout the day with highs of 28. That the accident that took place right in the middle of the CBD this morning is still affecting traffic, and it's going to take a while before that opens up. Coming out of Westlands, coming out of the main CBD, coming off of Langata Road, coming off of Mombasa Road, going to cause some problems this morning. That will be cleared away soon. We know that services are already on site to try and do something about that. Mombasa Road, coming from the SGR and then towards Cabanas and then towards General Motors. After that, though, it's smooth moving all the way down into to the Nyayo Stadium area, but then you'll get onto Huru Highway and you might be stuck for some time. So just giving you a heads up concerning that. Let us know what else you might see. We want to keep it moving this morning. Spice of MKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
We are still on the line with the Professor Food and Nutrition. It's not national. He is not concerned with fighting Al-Shabaabs or cattle rustlers or all those kind of Chinkororos and the other gangs in the country. It's food and nutrition security expert. Prof, as we went into the break, you were giving us now this whole thing of how the future was going to look like, where it's about receipt warehousing and all. Any country that has successfully rolled this out?
Yes, I think the concept of food reserve has been, it's really widespread across the country. I mean, just our neighbors here in Tanzania, I mean, they have been doing that, implemented both the food reserve system and also an incentive system. It's working pretty well, and I think, and we all can see their food situation. Of course, their situation is unique, different from Kenya because of the staple foods and all that. Ethiopia has recently, I think in the last 15 years, has been also implementing a similar system. Zambia, I think with support from FAO, they've done quite a bit of work there. And even move actually outside Africa. Japan, for example, has a food reserve system based on rice as a staple food. You go to the US, they have basically US in China. So the concept is really new at all. It's been applied in many countries in the world. It has worked. And I think all probably that need is just to look at these models and customize for a unique environment, and it should work.
One of the areas that I want to still keep going back is the peculiarity of Kenyans, especially the Kenyans in that segment called trade. Now, that segment of trader.
Yes.
There is the peculiarity of them. The one is the likelihood of those traders coming in to first of all try and manipulate the system. For example, when we say that we're opening up storage so that now private sector can come and play in this, how can we guarantee that the private sector, a few players in the private sector, will not come and sort of try and use their political influence to bulldoze and occupy the majority of the space in our national storage system, the NCPB, and thereby just locking out everybody else, and we end up having cartels and such. The underhand deals that we have seen in business.
Right. I think government is very conscious of that fact, and one of the things is that NCPB will still continue a major role in food storage. Out of the 21 million bags space, the government is releasing 7 million bags under lease to private sector, and also on terms of performance. So they are, you're not just giving the space for whatever you kind of use, but it's on a performance system lease. Number two is that besides the NCPB, remember KNTC also holds substantial, I think about 173,000.
This is the Kenya National Trading Corporation.
They have space. The KFA, they have space. And you may not be aware, but there are also a number of private, not too many, but it's growing, but there are a number of them that are coming up. The second, that are already trading.
Is the process, sorry to pause you there, Professor, is the process of leasing out this space meant to be open, transparent, and involving all the players?
It will be it's an open process. It will be an open solicitation for whoever, and because LCB will be looking at the best offer, because this is still an asset that belongs to government, and so LCB will be asking what's the best return you can give us in terms of, okay, we know you may need to do some investment to refurbish the store, and you need to recoup that back, but then we still will be looking at the best possible rent or lease offer that they can get. So it's a completely open process, and I think somewhere around in the next around September or thereabout, that should be coming out for anyone interested to bid. So there's that conscious need that private sector need also to be regulated and need to be held on account of performance.
So in that whole issue of regulating, I want to give you another example of another sector, the petroleum marketing companies. At some point, petroleum marketing companies were thought to have come together and cartelled properly to a point where they were thought to be manipulating the market in terms of the price of a product at the pump, the artificial shortages that were being created in the market, which will continue driving up the price. And this is what led to the government coming up with a formula that now regulates how much profit the petroleum marketing companies are allowed to rake out every month. Same kind of a problem that we have seen with others, where we see cartels forming and sort of trying to manipulate the market system. How do we guarantee our food security and ensure that cartels never form and never have a place in this? Sugar sector, same business.
Yes. No, and I think you're absolutely right that the nature of private sector is that it's profit motivated. It's you protect your territory and your market, and so sometimes which works the disadvantage by locking out potential competition.
Yep.
But I want to look at perhaps a more successful sector, and this is the banking sector. And I think if you remember a couple of years back, we had banks where government had a major stake, therefore suffering bad loans and all that. And I think the moment that sector was liberalized, I mean, you know how hard it was to get forex then, and so on and so forth. But the moment this was opened up, with the Central Bank of Kenya playing a regulatory, a very silent one, not directly into the market, we have seen a more successful. So you're not really the government is not getting in to play. I would say it's just playing like a referee. You are really giving instructions from this, or rather a coach from the line, without really getting in. You are the interacting with the players as a referee, but you are not actually kicking the ball. So, and I think when you look at the CBK, for example, look at the interest rate. There is the interest rate committee that every month comes and tells us this is the benchmark. What is it? Interest rate, which then the banks can use to make their own judgment commercially in a very competitive environment. We've seen in that sector also that we have also enabled the microfinance to provide alternative sources of finance. So even in these warehouses, by the way, we have two categories of warehouses. Is what is trading at the warehouse housing level, and is what we call the primary, that you may choose and say, as a cooperative, we want to have our own storage, and it is licensed, it's regulated, and that is it. So I think that the securities to allow as many players as possible to be in the field at their level. So it's not a preserve of a few. And that is the intention between now and the next 6 months to December. Yes.
Just to come back to what basically you're saying is that this year, by the end of this year, we'll see far-reaching reforms in the management of our food security. So basically, next year, we do not expect to hear the Minister for Agriculture saying that I'm opening up the market for importation of maize.
One, I think there's very clear, directive from the President, from the Cabinet Secretary, that this process has to be in place in 6 months. That's very clear. The second thing is government want to actually, as much as possible, get out of the idea of telling anybody go and buy maize at this price, go sell maize at this price, go and import maize at this price. And because that is not the duty of government, but it's only, and by the way, one of the important way, and the government will be coming in, is through something called a food balance sheet committee. And the holding of this committee is purely a statistical committee, or, is a knowledge entity that monitors who imports, what food has come in, what food has gone out of the country, what has been produced, what has been consumed on a daily basis. So that at the end of every month, like your money, it's a balance sheet. It's a food balance sheet. That's what they got. So if there's going to be any shortage, because that could happen, again, let's also be honest with ourselves, that it's not something that's going to come back, overnight. It is starting with a very deliberate, vision. But then, of course, before it gets to the level, it may take 2-3 years. But the point is that by the next 6 months, we should have substantial part of this work progressed.
Professor Wangai, I mean, it sounds, as we're listening to it now, it sounds like, it's great. But the actual players in this are the farmers. Are they aware of this?
They're not going to sell their
they're not going to NCPD anymore. Are they aware that this is happening? Is it being communicated to them? Because I'd think it'd come as a shock to them if then, or they would have said something totally different from what we are hearing they're saying now.
In fact, we have a very aggressive communication. We are actually reaching out to all the farmers, even using their vernacular stations, saying the same message that this is for your benefit. One, it gives you an opportunity to discuss with the off-takers or the purchasers even before you harvest, instead of going to line up after you have harvested, so that you even have a date when you should deliver to whoever you are selling to. Number two, we are giving you choices that you're not just producing for government, you are producing for the market. And therefore, there are all these market players who are competing, and the government on the other side is ensuring that you are cushioned against undue imports. You are cushioned against very high cost through a process of incentive, and we also know you, because like any other business, you need to know your customers.
Yep.
So NCPB is in the process of saying, who are my customers? What are they producing? Where and how can I support them? And when do I need to be ready to receive their product? So we are going out to all the regions. In fact, I think the other day, I think we were talking to the people in the North Rift. I think this week we are talking to the people, I think, in the Western Kenya. We are going out to the people in Central Kenya, to Ramogi, so that we reach them in the language that they really understand as best.
Prof, I'm going to just point it out here that we have seen in various sectors of government, when government is rolling out a project, they are very good in putting it out on paper. They are very good at developing policy, at going to Parliament, convincing Parliament to come up with the laws and regulations and making far-reaching promises, but they forget the main player here, who's the citizen. If I give you the example of the Central Bank of Kenya last year rolled out a major project, which was to retire old notes and bring into the country new notes. And within a short period of time, this was implemented. But everybody across the country knew what was required of them. Everybody knew what was happening. Now, we are talking about something that is far-reaching, because the vast majority of this country is agricultural. So everybody is a producer somewhere in the country. Now, very many producers, I can tell you for sure, you're rolling out these projects, you're talking to them, but very many producers don't really know what's going to happen in the next 2 years, or even starting October this year. And this is where it's very, very important that I think you also just critically review the communication, because that mentality that government has, and I know you're not in government, you're in academia, the government has this mentality of, okay, these are teething problems. We're going to roll it out. Yeah, eventually farmers are going to learn that we are no longer buying their maize, that they have to find somewhere else to sell their maize. Eventually they'll learn this receipt warehousing system. I mean, they'll see it in practice. They'll learn from their neighbors. They'll hear from whenever we go to a radio station here and there once in a while. This cannot be the case. In this particular one, it's food. It's livelihoods of people. People don't just farm to eat; they also farm to eke out a living. This is what is going to take children to school next year. This is what's going to, sustain them next year. If they don't know, my friend,
There's a problem.
Backlash.
That's right. Let me first of all clarify one so that it's very clear. The point is not that government is not, or NCPB is not going to buy maize. NCPB still has 15 million of bag space with them. But the point that they are doing it on a commercial basis. Take it. It's like KCB and Barclays Bank.
Yep.
They are out there. KCB is government owned, but it is interacting with you as on a business term.
Yep.
So what you're saying is that we're not going to have the minister announcing and telling NCPB, go and buy 4 million bags.
At this price.
NCPB has to do a commercial decision. And I can tell you right now, by the way, if you just want to know that this is working, in the last 1 year, we have not seen any import. And until the government resisted the attempt to import maize, you've seen that the price of maize given to the farmers has consistently remained at about 3,300 shillings, perhaps one of the best ever in the market. Number two, right now, NCPB, they have not imported the so-called subsidized fertilizer, which was retailing at almost about 20-something, 2,800 shillings.
Yeah.
Can I tell you right now, the price of fertilizer is at about 1,800 shillings. And why so? Because the producer of fertilizers have been able to approach NCPB and tell them, look, can you help us distribute this price, this fertilizer? And this is our offer price. In fact, has been going consistently down, because then we have removed this distortion, and we need to understand where we are coming from. Look, the government would many times buy maize, a bag, say for example at 2,800. Then during the time of excess, come at the time of scarcity, the maize is offloaded to millers at 1,800. Now, what does that do? If the miller then can get maize in bulk from NCPB at 1,800, they have then no need at all to aggregate, to go to the farmer and mop up what is in their stores.
Yeah.
So in that sense, the government intervention would then distort the market. So is this distortion in the market that we are trying to
eliminate,
correct by saying government has no business doing business?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Wangai Ndirangu, for speaking to us. And we will wait to see how the rollout of this grand project is going to look like. But we'll still have to call you in for more conversations on this. I'm sure there are very many questions that will be emerging as we progress and we get closer to October.
Thank you very much, and look forward to having this more conversation. As you say, I think it's important for us to get this message across and assure all our producers that this is for their benefit and generally for the good of the country and the consumers.
Before we let you go, we'd like to rope you in on what is today's proverb. C.T. Muga every day gives us a proverb of the day from Africa. Today, C.T.'s today's proverb.
100 aunties are not the same as one mother. This is saying from Sierra Leone.
Come again?
100 aunties are not the same as one mother.
Right.
You get it?
I get it.
What's your interpretation of this, Prof?
Wow, great. That's really, I would say that this, and in context of this discussion, that this is our own country, and many other countries may look better, but this is our own, and we must tend it with love and determination.
Very interesting.
Nice one.
Fantastic, actually.
Thank you very much, Professor Wangai Ndirangu.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Good day.
The conversation continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Well, in the next hour, we come back to look at the plight of children and the welfare of children across the country. We'll be speaking to the chairperson of the National Council for Children Services. Right? This is the conversation that we're going to have in the next hour. Also, these new figures that are coming out between January and June this year, the spike in the number of defilements and teenage pregnancies that have been reported in the country. What's happening? Let's have this conversation. Let's open it up. 0719-012-600. We'll ask you to join in. Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock.
Folks, all traffic converges in the CBD this morning where it's not moving very well. Now we have the remnants of that accident that took place right around the roundabout at Nyayo House. Unfortunately, now that it's been cleared, but now we have a lot of traffic as a result of the waiting time that it took. Off Mombasa Road, it's looking good until you then get to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Then you have to contend with what is. Thika Road today has been behaving very, very well. Perhaps everybody is in the middle of the CBD. Either way, it looks good. Not too much in terms of drama this morning. If there is, or if you see something that we should know about, or other folks need to be aware of, let us know. Spice FM KE. But right now, it doesn't look too terrible.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer.
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, and the conversation continues this morning as we look now more in depth into issues concerning children and the welfare of them in this country. A lot of numbers flying out at us yesterday when it came to the numbers of pregnancies or pregnancy-related issues, specifically out of Machakos County. Having said that, numbers had increased between the months of January and June, upwards of 4,000 cases of young girls having been reported as pregnant. There's also a lot of doubt in terms of what exactly those statistics are. Are they repeat cases? Because then, of course, they're logged in when they go to clinic. So it could be that one is logged thrice or twice, and so that rallies and adds up the numbers. Anyway, it still gives points to the direction that this is happening. There are still young girls who are getting pregnant as a result of defilement, or looking at defilement on its own, are being defiled, and that's an issue that needs to be taken care of. We spoke about the justice system and the state of how children are being treated when it comes to then legal matters. And it was clear to us that Kenya does not have a welfare system whereby these children can be taken care of. And that is a matter of concern, an eyebrow-raising one at best. And as we continue with that conversation today, it's interesting that these other issues then popped out at us yesterday. And the conversation continues. This morning, we're going to be talking with Dr. Joyce Ngugi, who is the chair of the National Child
Council for Children's Services.
Yeah, the National Council for Children's Services, and also the Deputy Governor of Kiambu County. And she's having this conversation with us. Daktari, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. You're in the room this morning with myself, Eric Latif, and C.T. Muga.
Good morning, Daktari.
Yes. Good morning to you.
So, I mean, like you've heard us say, Daktari, we started this conversation, but this conversation has been talked about for a very, very long time. And it's a bit alarming and quite worrying that there is no welfare state when it comes then to the protection or care of children, whether it has to do with legal matters or social issues. And then again, with some of the things that we've seen coming out yesterday, teenage girls still classified as children. We've got to jump right in and ask that first question is, where are we right now? And why are we in this position?
Good morning, all listeners. About the teenage issues and the teenage pregnancy that has been reported, my biggest worry or question was how this data has been corrected. Now that our children are not in schools, but I do not also want to disagree. And I want to say that during this time of COVID, our children are at home, idling around and living in an environment that they've not been used as per se, because most of the time they're in school. Those who are in boarding schools are in school. Those who are board days, at least they spend most of the time in school. Now they're spending at home, not doing much, because even the parents are not working. There is no much activities apart from idling around. And the idling around could be an encouragement to the vices that we've seen. Number two, also, now that even the adults are not so much into work, they are also just there, eating and staying. It happens that it is very unfortunate that they are using their time with the teenage girls, and the abusers have also gone to an increase. One, two, there is too much domestic violence that could also be leading into abusing the girls. There is too much consumption of alcohol that could lead to abusing of these girls. And also the girls idling around, they also could be tempted into indulging into sexual activities. Let me say each and everyone is just there. And who knows where this could be the only activity that most of the minds are indulging into. Now to say this could have led to the increased rate of the pregnancies with our teenage girls.
So when you hear about the teenage pregnancy, and it's the way you're bringing that context of now, let's look at it. Children are at home, they're not going to school, they're not, engaged or occupied on a daily basis, but also we have adults who are at home. So there's that possibility of one, there's defilement, adults defiling children, close relatives. There's the other possibility of children themselves engaging in sex because now they're free. There are very many other possibilities that we could be looking at here. The issue, however, is I'd like to believe that whenever a child of in this age bracket appears pregnant, the parents will take notice, and the parents will start, questioning, how did this happen? What happened? And in this particular case, then the child starts telling their story. If it was a case of abuse, the child talks about abuse. If it's abuse by a parent or by a relative, an older relative in the house, maybe they may not find it easy to say, or they may find it easy to tell another third party that this is what has happened to me. In these particular cases, how do we protect that child? How do we ensure that this child, first of all, feels comfortable enough to come forward and give their story? And how then do we also protect them going forward? Because they're still coming back. We are seeing stories in the paper today, two separate stories where children have been defiled by police officers. And in one case, when this matter was reported to the police station, the police officer threatened the child, and the child has now run away from home. How does the Council for Children's Services and the government ensure protection for such children and their welfare?
As you know, we just celebrated the Day of the African Child on 16th of this month. Just 2 days ago. And our theme was access to a child-friendly justice system, where we were actually advocating for a better justice system for our children in matters like these ones of defilement. Because we've come to realize how our children are threatened such that they cannot speak even when they are defiled. And we we are encouraging our children to keep reporting, whether to a friend, whether to a chief, whatever they would come across, as much as you also create awareness to the whole society to be in great help to these children to report the cases. The worst has been happening at homes where cultural factors take place and homes want to cover up defilement and keep on convincing, no, we cannot go to the police, we want to discuss it within ourselves, which we want to really tell the society. We mess the lives of our children, we mess the minds of our children, we mess their emotional lives that will create to great disturbances in future. When we had this theme this year, we are actually awakening the whole society, the whole justice system to be more considerate, to be more sensitive to the issues of our children as far as their justice is concerned. And mostly there is defilement, there is forced labor, there is all sorts of manners that our children go through and not taken care of well.
Dr. Ngugi, that's well and good. I mean, in terms of sensitization, it's a good thing. But also there's a role of government which is taking action. In terms of, we were speaking with the Justice of the Children's Court yesterday, and she told us one thing that we lack in this country is a welfare system. When a child goes to a police station or to a chief or to a third party adult and reports, I have been defiled or I have been molested by somebody who's, of course, it's going to be somebody who's close within their networks, then they lack that other support. They need to be removed from that environment and taken to a safe place. We lack safe houses. We lack a method that works well in addressing the plight of that child at that point. So even if we keep talking about, we are doing this to our people, we are doing this to our children, clearly, it's still happening. What are we doing about the children? Because the children are suffering today.
I can say we've been trying, but we've not done the best. We haven't been doing the best, but we've been trying. I want to say that the National Council for Children's Services learns from the national, and at the grassroots, we have a representation of the council called the Area Advisory Councils that is composed of either the DCC or the ACCs, together with community leaders and the clergy in our officer Department of Children. They have a committee that they're supposed to be looking at the issues of children within a certain village, be it a sub-county, be it a county, though the areas may be vast or big enough not to be covered well, but they try that if they capture any issue of a child, they're supposed to help the child. And within these areas, we have rescue centers, we have children homes, whereby we realize if we can come across a case like that, the child is supposed to be rescued and kept in some of our homes so that cases can be followed. And our children officers really try to follow up the cases. The unfortunate thing is when the cases are totally hidden by the society and the families, and they do not want to expose. And I really, at this particular time, I even want to talk to mothers. Mothers are one of our worst enemies, because when they even realize that a daughter has been defiled by her father, they want to cover up. They don't want to ashame this man, so they cover up. And what goes to destruction most is that particular girl. We will go on to sensitizing everyone that the sufferer is this girl who has been defiled, or this boy who has been defiled in that case, such that families may stop covering the issues up. Say to the cases of tourism, they know how really to intimidate these girls. Even when they go to report, they will put them off. It's another area that we really need to look at. And I hope now that we have gone through this theme, we'll try and do better measures using even our county government.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, Dr. Ngugi, and I can hear you saying that people have been trying or that will try. However, if we just take one case as an example, one of these stories that we've seen today, this girl and her family went to the police, who would seem would be the first port of call when it came to some kind of protectionism. Now, that did not happen. I see how that would affect anybody else who was in that situation and saying, all right, well, if I went, how do I go to the police? How do I go to an officer of the law if they are the ones who are accused of perpetrating this crime on another girl like me, on another daughter like mine? How then are we going to be sending a different message? And that's just one example.
There's so many.
I mean, there are thousands every day. We hear of at least 10 cases daily in particular quarters that this continues to go on. So in terms of practicality, how exactly would this happen? How then do we start to get people when they are young girls and unfortunately increasingly young boys, their parents, to divorce themselves from what they have known to be the norm over time, that nothing is going to be done about it, so they hide it? How practically are we going to change this?
It's very unfortunate that, sorry to use this word, that our society has become very rotten and the value has no great value to our children who are our readers in future. Because we find that even the caregivers, like the ones you have mentioned, or those who are supposed to be protecting the children as per se, are the ones abusing them. And it is only increasing our call to the whole society to be partakers of protecting the children and giving them their lives. Involving the religious leaders, and I know even in the religion, children are also abused even by the religious leaders, sorry to say this, but we have only to increase a call from religious leaders to the judiciary, to the parents, to the Nyumba Kumi, to everyone around these children. The children have a value. That if all we would waken up and join hands and all stakeholders to make sure we protect these children and not defile them or even help them wherever they have cases that they need to be helped.
Terry, you mentioned that you have been trying. And unless, please correct me if I'm wrong, and you said you've set up what amounts to committees to sort of deal with these problems.
Yes.
Is there anything else you've done?
They're called area advisory councils.
Yes.
The other thing we have done is that we have the rescue centers where we rescue those kind of children. We even have quite a number of teenage homes.
Where are all these homes within this country?
How many rescue centers countrywide, and where are they?
The rescue centers are many. I don't have the number now. They're many. But for the teenage girls, like in Kiambu, we have 2. We have others in Coastal Region. We have a number. In Kware, we have a number. We have rescue centers for teenage girls. The children homes are so many in the whole country, whereby if we realize that a child needs to be rescued, we are able to place them in our home and try to follow up cases. And those that are rescued at least, we try to follow up the case.
What does the rescue center comprise of?
A rescue center.
Yes. What is within? Yes.
We have the caregivers. We have the social workers. And we have matrons. We send our officers of the Department of Children to keep visiting them, and we also have counselors.
How does a child end up in a rescue center? I'm giving you this particular example. It's in the Standard this morning, an officer in rape claim. This is a case in Baringo North, where a 14-year-old girl claims that they were reported a case at Kinyach police station on June 11th, that a police officer had defiled this girl, and now the girl is pregnant. The police officer has threatened the girl. The girl has taken off from home, has run away from home. And the parents were really supporting the girl because they're the ones who took the case to the police station to report the police officer. So the girl has run away from... How does this girl end up in a rescue center near her in Baringo?
If she's found by someone, who knows about the rescue centers, they would bring them to the rescue center. And now that the case is up, I'm sure our officers, officers in the Department of Children will take over to look for the girl and take the girl to a rescue center. And I am sure they will help follow up the case for the girl.
So if in case you're not aware of where this rescue center is...
sorry.
Sorry, so if an individual is not aware of where this rescue center is, for example, and then they left again in the hands of the police?
If they're not aware.
Yep.
We leave to whoever they would meet of good heart that would place them to the rescue centers. But we keep talking about the rescue center. We've created awareness as much as we can that the rescue centers are there.
There's conversation that's happened around, like what now Makueni has done, setting up the first safe house for women and girls who are running away from, let's now talk about just the girl child who is in such a situation. We hear and we understand that we do not have safe houses across the country. We don't have a welfare system that comes in and takes care of such people. Yes, we've got these rescue centers, but the rescue center is, if you know about it, then you'll end up here, then you'll be taken care of for a while. What's the structure? Because you are the chair of an organization that is actually created by statute, and the mandate of the National Council for Children's Services is to advocate for children's rights, to ensure that the rights of a child are taken care of from beginning to end. In the case of defilement, that we are seeing a rapid rise in the cases of defilement, especially for these adolescent girls who end up pregnant, their life is changed, and then they are not getting the kind of support that they need. What is it that the organization is doing to improve this situation?
I would want, first of all, to congratulate the governor of Makueni for the home that they started to take care of the teenage girls. And we are encouraging others to do the same. Because actually the homes for teenage girls are not so many, we would encourage others and learn from it that we would create the homes so that we take care of more teenage girls. Though treating of the homes would not only be the issue is more to sensitize the society to make sure that these teenage pregnancies are not happening, as well as also talk to the teenage girls themselves when they are in schools, or even using the media to do more advocate, such that more care is taken to prevent the teenage pregnancies.
And there is something else I'd like to know. When people are taken to the rescue centers, what happens after that?
When they are taken there.
After you've been taken there, what happens?
When they are
You've been rescued
there,
now. What happens after that?
Once you are rescued in the homes, what happens is it depends the status you are in. You can be rescued when you are pregnant. There are those who are rescued when they already have children. And what happens is the girl will go through counseling. The girl will be taken care of, protected from the environment where they were in. We give them like three years left where we can talk to the girl, and then after this we are going to integrate the girl back to their home. When we have done counseling to the home, to where she came from. But those who are also not able to be integrated back, because I found a case where girls were taken from the streets, and they strongly resist to go back to their even parents. The girl stays longer. Yes.
What is the role of the council in all this? I mean, in terms of, one, there's awareness creation among this age group. There's campaigning against this kind of behavior in the society, but at the same time, in enforcing the laws that are in place. What is the role of the National Council for Children's Services?
The role of the National Council is just what you say to enforce. We enforce the law. That is why we are working closely with the judiciary to enforce the law. That whenever such things happen, the right law is take place and the girl is protected, and if it is a defiler, is sentenced accordingly. That is our law, which we try best to do, to work together with the judicial.
All right. So are children's officers under this council?
Student officers are not under this council. We are all under the Ministry of Labor. The council is under the Ministry of Labor. The Department of Children's Services is under the Ministry of Labor. But the director of the Department of Children's Services is a member of the council.
Okay.
And we work closely together with the department because they are giving services at the ground.
All right. So if we look at a case of, let's say, what we are seeing, the data that was released by the children's officer in Machakos, who was saying the number could even be higher than the 4,000 that she has released. She's saying during just this COVID pandemic, at least 4,000 girls have reported that they are pregnant. And this data is being picked from county hospitals, just the hospitals alone. I can imagine the other touch points would also be the chief's offices, the police stations. When this data is being collected, at what point then does the Department of Children's Services and the National Council for Children Services come in to assist these children?
Eventually, they'll come in to assist these children so that we know those who are able to be in their homes, they'll be in their homes and taken care of when they're in their homes. Those who cannot be in their homes will be taken to the rescue centers. At the same time, they will go to value those girls, are they in school or not in school? Because we would want to encourage, once they give birth, they go back to school. Therefore, I'm sure the Department of Children's Services will chip in immediately. Maybe they have even started to see where they have to place each and every girl and to make sure that they will go back to school. And whenever there is a case of development, it will not go, it will not lost.
It sounds, unfortunately, that we don't seem to have a handle on what is going on when it comes to this, Dr. To be honest, and to say that, it just seems that there's a lot more that's going on that can be handled currently. And I think that even yesterday when we're having this conversation, and it's like, the truth of the matter is that things are actually worse than the country is able to handle at the moment, than the council is able to handle at the moment, because it's widespread. Cases have increased in the last 6 months. We're not even talking about years. 6 months. Can we actually say that the council has a handle on what's going on right now?
Let me say that we'll have a hand, and we still have the challenge, just like the whole COVID has a challenge. It is a challenge that we never expected. It has come with the COVID season, and we never expected such a number would rise. But I'm sure we are going to take measures to try and curb this. It was a wake-up call at this particular time, and I'm sure there are so many other areas and many other things that are coming up new with this COVID, and we'll get more prepared as time goes on.
I'd like to look a little bit more specifically at the welfare system that, we've tried to shine a little bit of light on today. We already know that it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in this country, and it's something that is absolutely necessary, especially with the numbers that we are looking at. And unfortunately, the high numbers that we're looking at didn't start with COVID. We've seen this defilement on the rise even before COVID. So are there specific steps that would be taken towards the establishment of a welfare system in this country to take care of many, many, many cases that existed before COVID that would come even after COVID?
It's a good suggestion we have, and we can all hear. And I think I advocate that it's better to have a better welfare system to take care of those issues. This is an issue we're going to look at, I promise.
And also, because the issue is not just about the girl child, also the boy child. When you see cases of abuse, the girl child presenting as pregnant, you can see as a result of abuse. The boy child, you don't see that, but you can also imagine that the boy's child is also undergoing the same kind of challenges at home in whatever environment they're in. We're also even seeing cases of increased numbers of young boys, teenagers who are being arrested over cases of like robbery, violence, or other such crimes. Basically just becoming delinquent and ending up in the court system, having to access the justice system, having to be taken through the justice system. And like we were talking with the judge yesterday, she was saying, even those, they still need support. But when you hear now for the National Council for Children's Services, it's taking suggestions, it's taking ideas, and we're not hearing exactly what the Council for Children's Services has been doing, like rolling out a program or even addressing these particular issues or even anticipating what's going to happen when we have this kind of trend, when we see this trend during public holidays or during school holidays. What do we expect to see when we have an elongated time and period where children are at home? It's something that, the alarm bells were sounded a long time ago, even by the judiciary and other players in the judiciary.
No, the country is not going to sit back and look. The country has been doing something and it will continue doing it. Like we started talking of creating awareness, started talking of picking up the cases. We take up the cases and we help the children to go through the cases. And now I have talked about this increasement, which is a wake-up call that we will do better than what we have been doing, but we've not been quiet on it.
We thank you very much, Dr. Joyce Ngoge, for speaking to us. Dr. Joyce is the chairperson of the National Council for Children's Services. She's also the Deputy Governor of Kiambu County. Have you seen this kind of data also coming out of Kiambu?
Yes, I saw it on WhatsApp groups, and I'm yet to confirm. I saw Kiambu that it has 3,800. First of all, I want to confirm how the data is being corrected. Today I want to do those findings and see how the data is corrected and, of course, how true the data could be, but I'm not denying. And I'll start checking at the Kiambu data.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Joyce Ngoge, for speaking to us.
Thank you, Dr.
Asante. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We open up the conversation now for you to join in and participate. 0719-012-600. What's happening in our society? What is it that we ought to do to protect our children, boy child and girl child? The kind of statistics that we are seeing coming out. I also was raising questions when I saw 4,000 in 3 months in one county, and having heard nothing else, just, the children's officer releasing those statistics like it's just one of those numbers in the last 24 hours, and like nothing else has happened. And then also seeing the reaction that we got from the governor of Machakos County yesterday, who was saying, well, yes, there's an issue, although the numbers could be different from other quarters, and the statistics we're getting from the Ministry of Health itself, this data is different. 0719-012-600. Please call in and let's have this talk.
Still mostly partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 23 through the day. And in Nyeri today, 22 the high and lows of 13. Mostly cloudy conditions today. A chance of rain quite high later on. Nakuru is partly cloudy at 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 12 with showers expected later on. And in Eldoret this morning, it's partly cloudy and the rain will come in later with highs of 21. Kisumu County today is partly cloudy. We'll see that go throughout the day, then with highs of 30. And partly cloudy conditions in Kakamega, highs of 24 and lows of 15 with rain showers later on. And in Mombasa, where light rain showers continue through for most parts of the morning into heavier rains throughout the day, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Malindi is mostly cloudy and light rain showers already started there as well, highs of 28. All right, taking a look then into Kampala, where it's 23 degrees and partly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 19 with rain in the afternoon. Dar es Salaam is mostly cloudy right now, 24 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 23. All right, we'll take a look into freezing Johannesburg. We're at 4 degrees. It's mostly cloudy, highs of 13 and lows today of minus 22, and snow already forecasted for most parts of Gauteng. All right, in Lagos, light thunderstorms already taking place now, and it's going to be a rainy day well into Friday. All right, let's wrap things up in other parts of the world today. It's 19 degrees and cloudy in New York, highs of 25 and lows of 17 today, and clear skies in Paris at 6 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 13. And we'll finish things off in London, where rainy conditions will carry on through the day. Currently at 14 degrees, we'll see highs of 20 and lows of 13. All right, it's looking much better in most parts of the city of Nairobi today. Looking across the country as well, traffic wasn't a major issue today. We just saw the holdup right in the CBD of Nairobi because of the accident that took place. Other than that, Mombasa Road has been behaving very well, as has been her sister street, Thika Road, looking quite good all around. Hopefully the same conditions will carry out tomorrow.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Traffic.
The statistics that were released for Machakos County shocking, right?
Yep.
I mean, 4,000 was a very high number, shocking number. I've got to admit, the first thing that when I saw that number, I was like, no, it's improbable. It's not impossible. I was just thinking it's improbable. And then I looked at the details themselves as were released. Number of reported teenage pregnancies, and they were subdivided between two categories. Adolescents between 10 and 14 years presenting with pregnancy, and adolescents between 15 and 19 years presenting with pregnancy. Just the month of January alone, and this is just Machakos County alone, the total number of adolescents between 10 and 19 years who presented with pregnancy, this means that they went to hospital and they presented with pregnancy, 805 January alone. This is in the 31 days of January.
Yes.
805 children went to hospital and they were pregnant. And I was like, okay, so that is January. February, we see 783. March, 911. April, 789. May, 676. Those are very high numbers.
Yes, they are.
Every particular month. What is the government doing about it? I mean, are you hearing about this? Are you noticing that this is happening? What exactly is happening? And then, we start talking about it to the people in Machakos themselves. Governor himself released a statement yesterday and he said, you know what? I'm going to say yes, that there's a problem. All right. So first of all, the numbers, I think the numbers from what we are also gathering from the national government, they look slightly different in terms of looking at all the counties. This is the Kenya adolescent pregnancies in the first 5 months of 2020 from the Ministry of Health. He says, this data says across all the 47 counties in the month of January alone was 2,762 in the month of January alone. And for Machakos County in particular, the number was 10 between the age of 10 and 14 and 9 between the age of 10 and 14 in February. So 10 in January.
As opposed to 800 and
4. Okay. Point is, there's an issue. There's something happening. Let's speak to the residents of Machakos as well. You can call us and tell us what you see. And across the country, this is not just a Machakos County issue alone. Let's start by speaking to a lady who joins us on the phone. Faith Wadhome is a former CEC in charge of education, youth and social services in Machakos County. Faith, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you for calling me.
Now, you are in Machakos. You are
Yes,
a former minister of the Machakos County government in charge of youth, social services and education. Now, social services is where this whole topic that we're discussing today lies. During your tenure as the CEC, did you get this kind of information, this kind of data coming in?
Yes. Actually, this is not something new. It has been going on, but I guess because of COVID, we see increased amounts of abuse because people are at home. There's a curfew.
Yeah.
So those would be abusers who would normally not be at home, maybe at night, now are there. So obviously, we have an increased, amount of children being abused.
And could it also be, Faith, that the children then who would be abused are also at home because schools are closed?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that it goes two ways.
Yeah.
But for me, I think that we need to relook at the statistics because they look pretty high.
Yeah.
Because what they're literally saying is that if it's 4,000 children in Machakos that are pregnant, and we have 8 sub-counties, you're saying that 500 children in each sub-county, are pregnant, meaning that's a whole primary school.
Yep.
Yeah.
500 children is a whole primary school.
It's a very high number.
It's a very high number. So perhaps, that needs to be checked. But while I was working for the government, and I'm a very strong believer in rescue centers and half houses. I know somebody came on radio today and talked about rescue centers.
Yep.
Now, there are not enough rescue centers in this country. They were built during when we had provinces, and it was one rescue center for each province. So how do you tell a child in Masinga to come to the rescue center in Machakos? First of all, they will need to know that there's a rescue center, and they'll need transport.
Indeed.
So for me, what needs to happen is that the county government need to be mandated by a law that must be pushed by the women MPs, the women reps. Lobby for a law in Parliament to mandate each county government to build a rescue center or a safe house in each sub-county. That means whatever child, wherever they are, they will be able to access that rescue center. Yeah, they can walk there. Even if it takes, the whole day of walking, they'll be able to reach there. Right? And then number 2 is that whoever's taking the tests and the report from the child should not be taken to the police station. Let them come to the rescue center. Yeah, to take the statistics, because then the child is protected. And then the third thing is, if people know that your child is living in the rescue center, then they will be concerned, why is this happening? It's happening to the other children. You get what I mean?
Yep.
But right now, if the child is abused and goes back home, because where do they go?
They go back home.
You get what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, the cycle continues. But if they go to the rescue center or the safe house, then the community gets concerned. Why do you have 3 daughters in the rescue center? Tell us what is going on in there.
In your home.
Yeah.
When I hear you say this, Faith, and you started by saying, let's have a national law. We already have the Children's Act. We have we have the Children's Bill of Rights has the issue of children in the Constitution itself. Why not just take it down straight to the counties and say the county assemblies should enact this law, the county executives should take this up as a role that they ought to play, because social services at the county level is still a job that's being taken by the counties.
And that is why I'm calling upon the women reps. Let the women reps be the ones to do this. Yeah, let them be the ones to champion this, because somebody needs to champion it. Somebody needs to champion it on behalf of the children, because the children are not able to champion it themselves.
For themselves.
Yes, because if the laws are there, then why are they not being enacted? Because there's nobody to champion them. But if the women rep take this onto themselves to make sure that the county governments are mandated to build rescue centers in each sub-county, then we'll have a lot of change.
Has there been conversation about building such rescue centers in Machakos County?
Yes, we did have a plan, and I hope the plan is going to go through. And the plan was that we build a rescue center in each sub-county. And I must say, Makoene has done a fantastic job for them to have actually, built one and finished it. And hopefully they'll build several more. I hope the other counties take cue.
Why would it take so long to build one a rescue center? I mean, we are thinking of already the government has employees in terms of children service officers, children officers. You can even employ children officers at the county level. Why would it take so long to start having plans and constructing the safe houses?
Now, you know, I am not in a position to comment because I'm no longer in government.
No, actually, you're in the best position right now because you can speak from the outside and say these are the challenges that you see governments facing.
But the thing is, what the devolution is facing is that they are not getting money from the national government the way for development the way it's supposed to flow down. I think that's what the biggest challenge at the moment. Yeah. The money for development has been withheld for reasons I do not know. So if they don't have money for development, then they're not able to continue with their programs.
Can I ask a different question? Do you have independent bodies like church organizations and so forth who have the equivalent of rescue centers?
They're there, but they're not enough. They are just not. The question is being enough, and they're just not enough. So if the national government gives the county government their money for development, they will build these rescue centers.
Faith, we're aware that... also aware that, you know, there's quite a number of private organizations who have also set up rescue centers. And if there has been the call, even from the time that you were in government, to say that, you know, let's have this, that means that there was a clear realization of the fact that there's a problem and that there are too many young girls and, yeah, like we say, the numbers increasing of boys who are being defiled, who are being attacked, who are being abused. So obviously, by the time it's being set up, there is a need. We can dispute the numbers and say, okay, obviously, some of these numbers maybe are quite high. But still, in my opinion, one case is one case too many, and we know that there's more than one. So is this not indicative of fact that truly there is a problem that something needs to be done about right from the point of the law?
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And that's why I'm going back to the women MPs. There are very many laws in this country. But most of them are enacted when we have people lobbying. Yeah? So we need the women MPs to lobby to make sure that these rescue centers are built. Yeah, because there are many other priorities.
True.
But yeah, there are many other priorities. But this one is serious.
So what I hear you say is that the women rep, for example, will come and look at there's already all these laws and we have all these institutions that would also be advocating and campaigning for the rights of children. The role of the parliamentarian in this case would be lobbying for proper allocation of funds and mandate to the county governments. Now, what is the role of these other organizations, the National Council for Children's Services, the ministry itself? They have an entire ministry of labor with a State Department for Social Protection comes in here. We have two commissions. One is the National Commission on Human Rights. We have another one, a National Commission on Gender and Equality. I can imagine all these bodies, if they actually wanted to champion this case, they would champion it. Why do we find ourselves
with rapid results
with all these gaps?
Well, actually, what lacks is just cohesion. If all these bodies for this one particular cause, right?
Yep.
And we're coming together, all of us, to push to ensure that we have the children protected. It can happen, right? So we just need a cohesion.
Yep.
We need all these people to come together, yeah, and lobby as a force, and it will happen. We've seen things happen. Yeah, it will happen, and it can happen, but it's not proper. It's actually not proper what children are going through.
You know, sometimes when we're trying to look at a problem and look for a solution, it's say, okay, well, certain things need to happen, investigative councils and such set up, etc., etc. But perhaps we should look at what happens. Let's take this. Just Machakos County, for example, and the numbers that were given yesterday, let's even chop it in half, right? And say that we're dealing with 2,000.
Still high.
What would happen to these girls who have been, one, defiled, two, been the victims of early pregnancy or whatever that may be the case, how would their lives be affected? Because sometimes if we look at the problem and see what detriment it actually causes, perhaps that would spur on towards doing something about it. What happens to these lives when these things happen to them? When this abuse, when this defilement takes place?
Obviously, they never make sound adults. And for me, this is why I am asking, of what use is it to build secondary schools and other institutions, yet you're not taking care of the basic problem? You build a lovely school for girls, isn't it?
Yep.
But you haven't taken care of the psychological and other needs at the basis. Yeah? So don't go and build that secondary school. Build a rescue center. Because once you build a rescue center, you've already started taking care of them at that level. And they'll grow up because you'll get psychological support and so on and so forth. They'll grow up to go to those secondary schools.
You know, the defilement that we keep reading about happens to young women and boys. We don't actually talk about the boys, but young boys also do get defiled. But it's usually by older people. Now, you're not born old. People acquire some of these strange habits when they are fairly young. Some may say it's cultural, some may say it's the environment. But when you were CEC for education, did you see a gap in our education where young people were not cultured and taught? Because people are in school for a very long time, for a very long period of time, and they can be influenced then. Where people were taught, or young people were taught, just the basic tenets of respect and the basic tenets of, should we say, decent living. Because I'm asking this because if we leave everything to parenting, as we've done on many occasions, the modern lives that we live have clearly indicated to us that parents are overwhelmed. Many parents don't even know what to do. So the school system has the responsibility of doing certain things. They can't do what the parent does, but given that during normal school days, they have the children even for a longer period than the parents do, should some of these norms that we think are important not be imparted to children when they are in school?
I believe the new curriculum has actually taken care of that. Yes, it's actually embedded in the new curriculum.
You know,
how so?
Hello?
Yes.
How has it been done?
Yeah. The best place to answer.
Hello, Faith.
You're breaking up.
Yeah. Hello?
Yes.
Now we hear you.
Yes, I said I'm no expert, and I believe you should call somebody from Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development to be able to answer that question.
Maybe we should, but consider that our constitution is very explicit and detailed about, just let me call it child protection. What we're discussing here is the implementation of that constitution, which has failed and fallen flat on its face. Now, even if it is in the curriculum, what guarantees do you have that it will actually be implemented as it ought to? And how do we ensure that there will be an outcome that is desired?
Like I said, I'm sure they've put measures in place, and a lot of money has been spent to, and teachers have been trained. So it's not going to fail. Once you train teachers, it will not fail. I mean, look at us. We are we're doing okay, I believe, isn't it?
True, we are. Faith, we are losing you, and I've just want to let you go now. Faith Wadome, thank you very much for speaking to us. She's a resident of Machakos County, a former CEC in charge of education, youth, and social services. And asante sana for all the insights and your contribution this morning.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. 0719-012-600. We can take one more call as we go to the end of the show this morning. What's your view on this? What is it that we need to do to reverse this trend? We know we are seeing, a manifestation of abuse and defilement with the girls that are presenting with pregnancy. We also know that obviously it means that boys are also getting abused in one way or the other. What do we need to do to reverse this trend? Good morning. It's 5 to 10. So we go to the phone line shortly. When you hear this, and you're right in bringing up the issue of, let's start from the beginning, from maybe how we are bringing up the children, conditioning them through the school system. Are you talking about sex education as well?
Yes, I'm talking about the whole caboodle. It's not just one thing. It's the education and ensuring that it is understood, meaning it's also examinable. People can quote nursery rhymes that they sang when they were in nursery school.
Sure.
People quote books that they read in secondary school when they're 70.
Yep.
So the school system, all I'm saying is that it's a very effective medium for ensuring that people understand certain norms.
Yep.
And that's why I raised the question. Yes, are the institutions being used for this fully?
Richard is calling in from Naivasha. Richard, good morning.
Morning, Spice Team.
Good morning.
Interesting subject. I run the Naivasha Safe House, which is a Rotary project we started in 2003 for abused children. Being a man, you think abused children are girl defilement, but actually it's probably 40% boys. We were very lucky. The government gave us the old colonial Mau Mau prison, which we turned to this safe house.
How many children do you take care of in that safe house?
At the moment, we have 26. It's not an orphanage. We try and rehabilitate and put them back in a family unit where they are safe. If not, then they go into a full-time orphanage.
And how do you get these children, Richard? How do they? Do people bring them to you? Do you go out doing some kind of awareness advocacy campaign? How do they get to you?
We do have very qualified staff that do go out, but a lot of it is with the police, with the children's board, and of course with the hospital. I must say they're very good. The legal side of it is very important, so all children are registered with the police and the children's board before they come into the safe house. We're fortunate we've been sponsored by Naivasha Horticultural Fair, because it does cost quite a lot of money to run the safe house. And yeah, there is need to be done, but it's for the government to organise.
For sure.
What is your capacity? You say you currently have 26, but what is your capacity?
We've had over 40. And you say capacity, if there's a need, we have to supply.
Right. What's the process of rehabilitation and how long does it take?
Oh, some just a few weeks, some are months. We don't tend to keep long term because if we can't find the safe unit, family unit, it might be an auntie, it might be show, then they do go to orphanages.
Okay. So, Richard, what kind of challenges do you see? I mean, what do we need to do to address this problem in society?
Well, there are probably too many people that, shall we say, pay to get away from trouble. Financially, it is a burden, without a doubt. The Kibaki Children's Act, I think that was 2002, 2003, was a great help. So the courts are stricter. Like I said, we work with the police and the children's board, and they're very good. We have a good working relationship with them in Naivasha.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Richard, for calling in and for your contribution this morning. Have a good day and say hello to the children that you're taking care of.
And good luck to you guys. Great program, mate.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
This is a conversation that must continue, and we'll find ways of looking at other facets of this conversation, which we must continue having. Thank you very much for tuning in to The Situation this Thursday, The Situation Room this Thursday. Coming to the top of the hour, CT. What is today's proverb?
Today's proverb is 100 aunties are not the same as one mother. The role, the function, and the very ethos that surrounds parenting cannot be found in an auntie. An auntie will be like a subset of what your mother is. And much as they may try, it is unlikely that somebody will have the same attention to detail as somebody who has actually born a child will have, much as they may try.
You cannot replace your mother.
No, you cannot.
Can't swap mothers.
Yes, when Dr. Wangai gave the example of the country, he was spot on.
Right.
With all its messes and with all the interesting things and the deplorable things that we have, it is our country. Yes.
Asante sana. Conversation continues?
Conversation continues, but we must expand this conversation not just to defilement, but to abuse. Yes.
Absolutely. I do agree on that. We need to keep talking about it and we need to try and stay safe. But I think another thing that rings out true is that we have to be able to call it out and speak to it when we see the issues as opposed to sweeping it under the carpet.
See you again tomorrow.